Hello and welcome to Unacademy. Welcome to another stage of Conquer Prelims, where we bring for you a comprehensive discussion of the PYQs for the past 10 years from the portion of environment and ecology. Now, in this particular session, how should you approach this session and why should you take a look at this session first of all? Now, when you take a look at the questions which UPSC has been asking for the past 10 years, you will get an idea about which are the areas that UPSC tends to concentrate upon. Because when we think about the subject of environment ecology, our mind primarily goes to the idea that UPSC asks random places in news, random protected areas, and as a consequence, most of the candidates end up falling in the trap of rectifying and learning all the various different protected areas across the country, all the various different species. So here in this particular session, you will get an idea that what is it that UPSC is concentrating upon. And how should you approach this session first of all? So we will take a look at the question. Now, thereby you can think about what could your answer have been if you would have attempted the question. And then we shall be discussing the answer wherever required. We shall also be providing some amount of additional information which shall be helpful in case a similar kind of topic gets repeated in the years thereby. Having said that, this particular session is relevant for this year's candidates as well as the candidates who appear for next year. Now, in this particular analysis, we have divided the entire set of more than 100 questions in terms of the various different topics so that it is easy for you to concentrate on individual topics and understand your weakness when you start your preparation or when you carry out the revision. So we will discuss the questions associated with the protected areas. Then we shall be discussing the questions associated with ecosystem, biological systems, etc. The questions associated with the basic concept of decomposition. Then we shall be concentrating on the questions which have appeared from the portion of pollution, one form or the other. Then climate change. Now many questions are asked from climate change as well as the species and the biodiversity thereby. And then we shall be concentrating upon some of the international laws and the international conventions which have made their way into the question paper. Now, before we start the discussion, an announcement for all of the candidates, all of the prospective candidates. We are holding the Unacademy Civil Services Championship Test. It is a scholarship test. Do appear for the test on 23rd of March at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. and stand a chance to win lucrative prizes, including the tickets for the IPL and so on. Now let us start, first of all, with a discussion of the questions which have appeared from the area of the protected areas and the national parks and the wildlife sanctuaries. So first of all, the first question that we take a look into. Now, in a particular region in India, the local people train the roots of living trees into robust bridges across the streams. As the time passes, these bridges become stronger. These unique living root bridges are found in which of these states? Meghalaya, Himachal Pradesh, Jharkhand, and Tamil Nadu. These are your options. Now, when you take a look at the living root bridges, this is what it appears to look like, where over a period of time they are bound together, and then as the roots further strengthen, the bridges, they gain their strength as well. And that is where these bridges can last for a very long period of time without causing much of the debris and without causing any issue thereby. Now, here the answer, as most of you have correctly guessed, is the state of Meghalaya. It is in the state of Meghalaya where you will find these living root bridges, which are obviously an attraction for the tourist destination as well. Now, this was a simple, straightforward question. Now, let us take a look at another question. Which of the following protected areas are located in the Kaveri Basin? Now, when you solve these kind of questions, and these kind of questions are oftentimes repeated by UPSC, here you have to understand the pattern. UPSC is testing two kind of basic parameters out of the candidates, whether you are aware about the region of the Kaveri Basin, and secondly, whether you are aware about where these are situated, just the basic location. It is not asking you about a detailed analysis of these places or these protected areas for that matter. So, Nagarhole National Park, Papikonda National Park, Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve, as well as Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. Which of them are situated in the region of Kaveri Basin? Now, if you take a look at it, Nagarhole, which is situated to the western side of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, that again lies in the region of the Kaveri Basin, right? Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve in the region of Tamil Nadu, northwestern part of Tamil Nadu, again is in the region of the Kaveri Basin. Papikonda National Park, however, if you take a look at the location of Papikonda, this is where it is situated to the northern part of Andhra Pradesh, closer to the Andhra-Telangana border is where Papikonda is situated. However, if you take a look at Nagarhole, this is where Nagarhole is situated, a part of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. This is where the Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve is situated. And it is here itself where you will also find the region of Wayanad, protected area. So this entire region from the area of Nagarhole, Mudumalai, Bandipur, then the Mukurthi, all of this forms a very large connecting zone between the western and the eastern Ghats, including the Satyamangalam, and that forms the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, where you will find a large variety of endemic species of plants as well as animals, rich variety of herbivore, and obviously one of the larger population of tigers anywhere across the country. So that is the region where these protected areas lie. So here, other than Papikonda, all these three, they form a part of the Kaveri Basin, or rather, they lie in the region of the Kaveri Basin. So the correct answer in this case is going to be C, which many of you have given the correct answer. Very good. Now, here after that, moving on to the next question. From the ecological point of view, which one of the following assumes importance in being a good link between the Eastern Ghats and the Western Ghats? Now again, you observe the trend of the question, not immediately the answer, but the trend. It is asking you about the locational analysis, whether you are aware of these areas or not. Now here you observe Satyamangalam is given, Nalamala Forest is given, Nagarhole is also provided. Now, Sheshchalam Biosphere Reserve obviously is in the northeastern part of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, so it automatically eliminates itself. Now, we have taken a look at the location of these areas. Now, you see, when you talk about Nagarhole, it is situated in the western part, right? It is situated in the laps of the Western Ghat. But it is this Satyamangalam which provides that kind of a wildlife corridor between the species moving between the eastern and the western Ghats as well. So here the correct answer is going to be Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve. Okay, very good. Now, then consider the following pairs, wetland and their location. Now, remember, these are the Ramsar sites. Now, recently we have had a discussion about all the major important Ramsar sites across the country, at least those Ramsar sites which have remained in use for the past year and a half. Now, if you have taken a look at that video, this question should be very easily doable. So, Hokera wetland, and the location is given Punjab, right? Renuka wetland, Himachal Pradesh. Rudrasagar Lake, Tripura. Sattamkota Lake in Tamil Nadu. Now, these kind of questions, Yogesh, if you think about it, replying to your question. So, you are asking that why is it that such questions are asked? So, mostly you will find that the protected areas in news through the year, they are the ones which are being asked, or the species in news through the year, they have a propensity of being asked in the examination. Having said that, if you take a look at these wetlands and the Ramsar sites, where is Hokera wetland situated? Hokera wetland is situated in the region of Jammu and Kashmir, right? In the region of Jammu and Kashmir, in the northern part of the country. It is not situated in Punjab. So the first statement, or the first one, is incorrectly matched. Renuka Sagar, now this is present in Himachal Pradesh. Along with the Pong Dam Ramsar site, this is one of the important Ramsar sites in the region of Himachal Pradesh. Lot of migratory species of birds, particularly from the northeastern part of Asia and Central Asia as well, they end up making a stop in the region of Hokera wetland before, or rather Renuka wetland, before moving further south in the central, eastern and western part of India. So this is correctly matched. It is situated in Himachal Pradesh. Rudrasagar Lake. Rudrasagar Lake is amongst the only Ramsar sites which is present in Tripura. So this is also correctly matched. Sastam Kota. Sastam Kota is not situated in Tamil Nadu. Now, Tamil Nadu has got the largest number of Ramsar sites as compared to anywhere across the country. Tamil Nadu has got close to how many? 20 Ramsar sites out there. But Sastam Kota is not one of them. Sastam Kota is situated in the region of Kerala. Very good. Now, in Kerala, you have three important Ramsar sites. That is the region of Astamudi. That is the region of Sastam Kota as well. So here, this is situated in Kerala. So 2 and 3, they are basically correctly matched. So how many pairs are correctly matched? The answer is going to be B. That is only 2. Yes, Vembanad Coal is also situated. Good, MK. Now, that is the answer in this case, that is B. Now, after that, a straightforward, simple question again, because this was in news that year, that is with reference to India. Dedwana, Kuchaman, Sargol and Khatu are the names of glaciers, mangrove areas, Ramsar sites or saline lakes. Now, if you think about it, now, Dedwana, Kuchaman, etc., they are not situated in the alpine area or the Himalayan region. So obviously, they cannot be glaciers. Now, mangrove areas, let's suppose we get confused that whether they are in the region of mangrove, coastline, etc. or not. But if you know that all these are actually situated in the state of Rajasthan, right? So then you will understand that these are not even the mangrove regions. So you eliminate that. Ramsar sites in the region of Rajasthan. You have the Sambar Lake, you have the region of Keoladev. These are the Ramsar sites. So none of them fit the bill as well. So the correct answer in this case, even by the method of eliminating other answers, comes out to be the saline lakes, where you have some of the seasonal streams which drain into some of these lakes, but the rate of evaporation is so high that the salinity factor keeps on increasing, making these lakes very, very saline. Okay? Now, then another question associated with the protected area and also a kind of a regional analysis. Consider the following pairs: national park and the rivers flowing through the park. Which are the rivers which drain through that area? Corbett National Park, Ganga. Kaziranga National Park, Manas. Silent Valley National Park, Kaveri. Which of them or which of the above pairs is or are correctly matched? Now, in this case, which is the river stream which drains through the region of Corbett? It is basically the river stream of Ramganga. Ramganga is the stream which is a left bank tributary of river Ganga that drains through the region of Corbett. Now, when we talk about Kaziranga, Kaziranga is drained by which particular river? Kaziranga is drained by Brahmaputra and some of the smaller streams. Brahmaputra. Silent Valley, where is it situated? Situated in the region around Idukki district, around Kerala, isn't it? It is in the Silent Valley where you will also find some of the Shola vegetation. You will also find slowly and steadily expanding population and the area of the Nilgiri Tar, right? After all, that is the overall aim of the project Nilgiri Tar, to slowly and steadily expand the region of the occupation or the region where you will find the presence of that. Now, does that lie across the river Kaveri? No. River Kaveri originates where? from the Brahmagiri hills in the region, or the place is Talkaveri in the Kodagu district of Karnataka, and then drains to the east and flows into the Bay of Bengal. So this is also incorrect. So which is correctly matched? None of the above. Okay, so the correct answer in this case is basically going to be D. Yes, Moyar is one of the streams which drains through the Silent Valley. In fact, the Moyar eventually moves into the region of Bandipur as well. Okay, now then consider the following pairs. This is a simpler question. Nokrek Biosphere Reserve and also the region where they are situated. Nokrek Biosphere Reserve, Garo Hills. Loktak Lake, Bareil Range. Namdapha National Park, Dafla Hills. Now here you need to again look at what UPSC is asking out of the candidates. It is simply asking whether you are aware of the location of this simple physiographic features of India or not. And if you are you aware about the location of these areas or not? Now, obviously, all of them are very vital, important regions in terms of biodiversity. So when you talk about the region of Nokrek, where is Nokrek situated? In the region of Garo Hills. So this is correctly matched. Now Loktak Lake, is it situated in the region of Bareil Ranges? So if you take a look at this, observe, this is where you have the Bareil Range, some part of Assam, and then eventually in the east. Loktak Lake is situated to the east of the Bareil Range in the state of Manipur. Okay, so this is again incorrectly matched. Then Namdapha National Park. When we talk about Namdapha National Park, where is Namdapha? It is situated in the southeastern part, or rather the eastern part of Arunachal. But where are Dafla Hills? This is where you have the Dafla Hills. So Namdapha, on the other hand, will lie in the region around Patkaibam. Okay, that is where Namdapha will lie. So it is not in the case of Dafla. Okay, so the correct answer in this case is going to be A, that is 1 only. Namdapha National Park, in fact, is quite frequently in news owing to the various different kind of species that you find, including the critically endangered Namdapha flying squirrel that you find in the region. And at the same time, a variety of different kind of landscapes, because the presence or the altitude variation is roughly around 200 meters above sea level to more than 2000 meters above sea level. So you have a montane vegetation indicating a variation from tropical broadleaf trees to a kind of some alpine vegetation as well. So that is where you will find a lot of variety of plant species, and obviously that will be able to support a lot of animal species along with that as well. Okay, now which of the following are the most likely places to find the musk deer in its natural habitat? Askot Wildlife Sanctuary, Gangotri National Park, Kishanpur Wildlife Sanctuary, and Manas National Park. So where will you find musk deer? Now when you talk about musk deer, it generally is present in the case of alpine areas in a greater altitude. That is where it will be situated, right? So musk deer will be present in the Himalayan area. So that is one of the first ideas that you need to have. As per IUCN, it is endangered. Now, this musk deer, where is it to be found? Now, Askot Wildlife Sanctuary. Where is Askot Wildlife Sanctuary? It is situated in the region of Uttarakhand, in the area around Pithoragarh. That is where you have Askot. So obviously it is a Himalayan region, so you will find the musk deer population there as well. So it is there to be found. Then Gangotri National Park, again in the high altitude areas of Uttarakhand. So there again you will find the presence of musk deer in the vicinity. Kishanpur Wildlife Sanctuary. Kishanpur is situated in the Terai region around the area of Dudhwa. National Park, and that is where you won't find the presence of musk deer, and neither will you find it in the region of Manas National Park. So here, these two are not there. Anyways, if you knew that 1 and 2 are where to be found, are the regions where musk deer can be found, so automatically that is the only option which is available, even if you are not aware about the location of the third or the location of the fourth. So that also will drag you to the correct answer in this case. Now, when we talk about musk deer, look at it. This is where the entire range of musk deer lies. Okay, not to be found in the eastern Himalayan region across Arunachal. Lifespan of 10 to 14 years, right? IUCN list, endangered, and in the region or where it is to be found, in which countries? India and the region of Nepal. So in the region of Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, some parts of Arunachal to the bordering areas, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, and the region of Tibet, that is the area of China. Okay, right. Now here, moving on to the next question. With reference, these questions are based on current affairs. Some of them are based on current affairs. Many of them are also based upon your idea about the location, where certain regions are located. If you know the location of these areas, you will be able to get the questions correct. Having said that, another thing that I would like to tell you, look at how many questions are there from the region of the protected areas over the past 10 years. You will find less than 10%. Majority of the questions are driven from the aspects of climate change, laws, convention, and ecosystem as well. Biodiversity, basic facts of biodiversity as well. That is where your basic concept and your idea of current affairs will drive you to success. So please don't be fixated towards learning these protected areas that I don't know where Ascot is, so I will start learning all the protected areas, all the national parks. Because please understand, not doable before the prelims, or even if you are appearing for the examination next year, that is not something I would advise. More than 110 national parks, more than 500 to 600 wildlife sanctuaries, around 58 tiger reserves, around 33 elephant reserves, around 89 Ramsar sites, around 73 and more critically endangered species. So you will be ending up rectifying almost anything and everything. Maybe one question is asked, so not worth your time. Look at the physiography of India, and as much as possible, try to understand with the help of the places in use, the regions in use, where a particular region is situated. That's it. Okay. Now, with reference to India's Desert National Park, which of the following statements is or are correct? So it is spread over 2 districts. Now, Desert National Park, situated in the area of Western Rajasthan, that is in the Thar Desert, obviously, and around the region of Jaisalmer. So it is spread over 2 districts. There is no human habitation inside the park. It is one of the natural habitats of the great Indian bustard. Now, this question can be easily solved by the help of elimination methodology. If you use the elimination and take a look at absolute terms, this question can be solved very easily. So here, there is no human habitation inside the park. There is hardly any place, particularly in the most populated country of the world, where you will not find any human habitation. So this in itself is incorrect. Now, whether you know whether it is spread over 2 districts or not, whether you know that it is the habitat of great Indian bustard, but this is a common knowledge that it is the habitat of great Indian bustard. After all, it is the critically endangered species in the region of Rajasthan. So that elimination of 2 automatically brings you to the correct answer. That is going to be C, 1 and 3 only. Now here, this is the location of the Desert National Park. Okay, in the region close to Indian border. Now here, when we talk about the great Indian bustard is relevant for your exam. These are some of the species which are relevant for your examination, particularly in this year. Even for the past couple of years, there have been various different court cases associated with the Oran wastelands or the sacred groves, again impacting the great Indian bustard. Then some species like Malabar civet, again they have been in news. Some of the migratory species, we have talked about it in the Ramsar sites video as well, which are the areas in news. Just concentrate on those, you will get the correct answer. So great Indian bustard, it is basically critically endangered, wingspan of around 2 meters roughly, now listed in Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and in the Convention for Migratory Species also it is listed, what is also famously known as the Bonn Convention, CMS. That is also what is your Bonn Convention. Okay. Right? And critically endangered in IUCN Appendix 1 of CITES is where the protection is provided. So absolute maximum amount of protection and conservation is provided to the bustard species. Okay. Now, among the following tiger reserves, which one has the largest area under critical tiger habitat? Now, Corbett, Ranthambore, Nagarjun Sagar, Srisailam, or Sundarbans, which has got the largest area under critical tiger habitat? Now here, the straightforward answer is Nagarjun Sagar, Srisailam. This is a bit factual. You might have known, might not have known. Now, where is this NSTR situated? Or Nagarjun Sagar, Srisailam Tiger Reserve, where is it situated? This is the location in Andhra Pradesh, right? Closer to Kurnool, where you will find the NSTR, which is situated, yes, correct, at the bordering area of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, right? Now, two major dams are located in the region, after which the name is ascribed, that is Nagarjun Sagar as well as the region of Srisailam Dam. Now, it is basically situated in the Nalamala Hill range in the area of the Eastern Ghat. The Krishna River drains through this particular protected area. It is one of the largest tiger reserves present in the country, having an aerial span of more than 3,700 square kilometers. Here, the kind of vegetation that you will find, obviously present in the Eastern Ghats, so not very heavy amount of rainfall, so tropical, dry, moist, deciduous. You will not find evergreen or semi-evergreen. Most of the regions you will find dry deciduous, okay? And here, various different varieties of shrubs, trees, etc. are to be found, attracting a large herbivore population, and hence you will find the carnivore population also to be abundant in the area. Okay? Now, then the next question, which one of the following protected areas is well known for the conservation of subspecies of the Indian swamp deer or Barasinga that thrives well on hard ground and is exclusively graminivorous? What is graminivorous? What do we understand by the concept of graminivorous? Consumption of grasses, in simple terms, right? These are the terms which are used in order to intimidate you guys. Here, herbivorous could also have been used, but then the candidate can get much more panicky if they come across the term graminivorous. That is why these are some of the tricks that UPSC has up its sleeves. If you know about these tricks, you will be better prepared, and important to maintain your calm. Now, Barasinga is to be found in certain areas, including Kanha, including the region of Dudhwa, and around Pilibhit as well. So that is where you will find the presence of Barasinga. Now, if you take a look at Manas, Manas is situated in the east in the region of Assam. That is not where you will find Barasinga. Mudumalai is present in the south. Again, you will not find Talchapar is where you find the black buck population. You will not find the Barasinga or the swamp deer. So the correct answer in this case is going to be Kanha. Okay, so it is basically the Indian swamp deer, Barasinga, is vulnerable, right? This is your swamp deer. Now, there are three subspecies of swamp deer: western swamp deer, right? Southern swamp deer, found in central and northern India. This is the kind of species that you find in the region of Kanha, and eastern swamp deer found around Kaziranga and Dudhwa, but not so much in Kaziranga, slightly in the region of Dudhwa. That is where you will find the presence of swamp deer. Okay. Now, which one of the following national park lies completely in the temperate alpine zone? Again, the same concept about knowing the location, whether you are aware about the names. If you are aware about the names, are you aware about the physiographic conditions and divisions of India, which you study in your basics of geography? If that is clear, this should be a cakewalk again. So here in this particular case, Manas, Namdafa, Neora Valley, or Valley of Flowers. Now, all those who are thinking about the region of Manas, Manas straightforward will be incorrect. Why? It is not at all present in the alpine zone, right? So that is incorrect. Namdafa, just now we have talked about the fact that there the height starts from around 200 meters itself. So it is not completely in the alpine zone. However, when we talk about the Valley of Flowers is basically situated in which particular state? So Valley of Flowers in the region of Uttarakhand is the one which is completely in the alpine territory around the region of Nanda Devi. So that is where you will find the Valley of Flowers National Park. Okay. Now, which of the following states is the Pakui Wildlife Sanctuary located? This is purely based on current affairs throughout the year from 2017 to 2018. The Pakui Tiger Reserve and the Pakui Protected Area, or what is also referred to as the Pakke Tiger Reserve, that is present at the bordering region of Arunachal Pradesh and Assam. So that was in news. So that is why UPSC followed it up with a simple question, and the correct answer in this case is going to be A, that is Arunachal Pradesh. Okay. Now, then, which one of the following national parks has a climate that varies from tropical to subtropical, temperate, and Arctic? That means, which of these protected areas indicate a variation in terms of climatic condition from tropical to the region of, or to the condition of Arctic? So, the region should have been closer to sea level and then have a height greater than 3,000 to 4,000 meters as well. So here you have Kanchenjunga, Nanda Devi, Neora Valley, and Namdafa. Now think about it. Kanchenjunga. Will you find the presence of tropical vegetation in Kanchenjunga? No. You will find temperate and Arctic. Maybe at the lower reaches some trace of subtropical as well, but you will never find the region of tropical in that case. Nanda Devi. We have just discussed Nanda Devi is the region where you will find the presence of alpine conditions. So again, tropical conditions not to be found. Neora Valley. In the case of Neora Valley, Arctic conditions are not to be found. Then you have Namdafa. Namdafa is where we discussed that the height increases from around 200 meters above sea level all the way to the Arctic zone, where you have the tundra vegetation of mosses and lichens. So that is where Namdafa is the correct answer. That is the one where you have a variety of montane vegetation from tropical broadleaf all the way to the tundra. So that D is the correct answer in this particular case. So Namdafa, located in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, right? It lies close to the proximity of Indo-Myanmar-China Tri-Junction. It is located between the Dafabam range of the Mishmi Hills and the Patkai range. Now, you have Dafla, Miri, Mishmi, Abor. These are the hill ranges in the Shivalik in the eastern part of Himalayas, where the name is ascribed owing to the tribes which occupy the region. So it is, the naming is from the tribal or the tribal presence in that particular area. So this Namdafa hence is important. Now, which of the following national parks is unique in being a swamp with floating vegetation that supports a rich biodiversity? Again, a question associated with the current affairs of that year, but nonetheless, this is a simple, straightforward question which should be easy to solve, because when we talk about the region of swamp with floating vegetation, there should be only one name which should come to your mind. When we talk about floating vegetation, we are talking about this kind of an ecosystem. This floating vegetation is also what is referred to as the fundes. Right? And here you have a special kind of species of deer which is known as the Sangai deer, which is also to be found. Sangai deer or the dancing deer. That is what you find. So this is largely occupied by the wetlands and the Ramsar site of Loktak Lake. And that Loktak Lake is situated where? It is situated in the Kebul Lemyao National Park, which is situated in Manipur. Okay? So I hope this would be an easy question. Most of you would be able to solve this. Now consider the following pairs in terms of the wetlands and also where are they present in terms of the confluence of the rivers. Harike wetland, confluence of Beas and Satluj. Keoladev Ghana National Park, confluence of Banas and Chambal. Koleru, confluence of Musi and Krishna. Again, this can be solved by your elimination method. Because if you know the region of Koleru Lake, now again, we have discussed it that Koleru Lake at one point of time was across the coastal area of Andhra Pradesh. And it lies between the region of Godavari as well as the Krishna basin. Over a period of time, due to emergence of the coastline across the eastern coast, this region has come away from the coastal area and there is land between Koleru Lake and the Bay of Bengal now. But nonetheless, it lies between Krishna and Godavari. It is not drained by the river Krishna either. You had UPSC asking a separate question recently that we have discussed in Geography PYQ as well, where you had a question about river Krishna draining through the Koleru Lake, river Jhelum draining through the Wular Lake. So it is again a repetition of the same kind of a topic. So think about it. These are some of the important protected areas. If you just manage to look at the PYQs, you could have solved that question of geography which came recently. Okay, so this can be eliminated. If you eliminate 3, you get the correct answer. So here Harike wetland is correctly matched and then the remaining are incorrect. It is here where you have the very famous Harike barrage, which ends up providing water indirectly to the Indira Gandhi Canal network as well. Okay? Yes, there is no major river near Keoladev, Ghana. Very good. Now, another question associated with a larger protected area or the concept across the regional spread of the world. This is about the coral reefs. Consider the following statement. Most of the world's coral reefs are in tropical waters. More than 1/3 of the world's coral reefs are located in territories of Australia, Indonesia, and Philippines. Coral reefs host far more animal phyla than those hosted by tropical rainforest. Now here, basically, this was one of those controversial questions, but now, because UPSC has generated the answer key, and various different sites have also, in the terms of NGOs and the various climate action and species action groups, they have also published the data. So now, no longer controversial. So here, the straightforward question, most of the world's coral reefs are situated in tropical waters. This is correct. When we talk about coral reefs, this is their broader distribution. So coral reefs are of 2 various different types. Coral reefs are basically warm water corals as well as the cold water corals. Now, warm water corals are the ones which are greatly explored, whereas cold water corals, which are to be found, for example, Rost Reef off the coast of Norway, that is where you will find cold water corals to some extent. And other than that, in the ocean bottom also you will find the cold water coral. So those cold water corals are not so well known. Warm water corals, however, you will find in much greater density where you have the shallower water, where the water is not very deep. So obviously where there will be a lot of small islands, there you will have the presence of shallow water. These warm water corals overall, or in general corals, they form three important landforms. You have the fringing reef right at the coastline, then you have the barrier reef like what you observe in the northeastern part of Australia, and then you have the atoll formation as well. So those are the different types of landforms that these corals create. Now it is in this region where you will find a greater abundance, not only in terms of the population, but also the species diversity within the corals to be found in this region. So this is what is also famously referred to as the coral triangle. Okay, this is your region of coral triangle. Okay, now that is the region of maximum dominance of coral. So most of the world's coral reefs are in tropical waters, correct? More than 1/3 of the world's coral reefs are located in the territories of Australia, Indonesia, and Philippines, correct? Coral reefs host far more animal phyla than those hosted by tropical rainforest. This is also correct. So the correct answer in this case is going to be D, 1, 2, and 3. That is the reason, one of the reasons why corals are also referred to as the rainforest of the marine ecosystem. Because what do the rainforests do? Rainforests, they provide you with oxygen. They take in carbon dioxide, provide you with oxygen. At the same time, they manufacture enough amount of food for large number of biodiversity to be dependent upon them. Along with that, you will also find that the rainforests provide shelter to the widest base of biodiversity on the land. Similarly, when we talk about the corals, which is a symbiotic relationship between the coral polyp and the zooxanthellae species, the algae of zooxanthellae. Now they manufacture, or the zooxanthellae carries out the process of photosynthesis, whereby they take in carbon dioxide, produce oxygen, enriching the oxygen content in the ocean. They will be able to, because of photosynthesis, provide food and also carry out the protective mechanism where shelter is provided to large number of species thereby. So the correct answer in this case is going to be D. Okay. Now, after this, moving on to the next. No, Trump Sharma third statement is not wrong, because when we talk about the region of the coral reefs, there are far larger number of producer community as well as the consumer community which is to be found there, right? So that is why the total individual number of animal species to be found in the region of coral reefs outnumbers the number of species in the rainforest. That is the statement which made this question slightly controversial, but over a period of time, obviously, we know that it is correct. The UPSC answer key is correct. Okay. Now, then questions associated with the basic concept of ecosystem and associated with the case of ecology, food chain, etc. Which one of the following terms describes not only the physical space occupied by an organism, but also its functional role in the community of organisms? Now, wherever an organism lives, that physical space, indicating the abiotic factors, that is basically referred to as a habitat of that organism. Okay. But then when you consider its role, functional role in the entire food chain, in the entire system, that functional role, what do we mean by functional role? Functional role indicates what is the trophic level, what is the position in the food chain. Is it a primary consumer? Is it a secondary consumer? Is it a tertiary consumer? Because if it is a primary consumer, that means if it is a herbivore, then you have carnivores which are dependent on that. So removal of that herbivore can lead to the collapse of the ecosystem. So that is the functional role that a species plays in a particular ecosystem. So when we talk about both the physical space as well as the functional role, that is what is referred to as an ecological niche. Okay, so that is the correct answer. What is an ecotone? Ecotone is basically a transition between two different ecosystems. If you have, let's suppose, a desert. Let's suppose after a particular distance you have forest. But you won't come across a situation that till here you have sand dunes and right next to it you have dense forest. Happens only in movies, not in real life. In reality, what does one observe? That from these sand dunes, small shrubs and scrubs will be found. They will be then replaced by the grasses. They will then be having some shorter trees, and eventually you will have the forest. So that transition between one ecosystem A to another ecosystem B, this is what is your ecotone. Ecotones will generally have a larger species variety as compared to individual ecosystem, because here you will have species who are adapted to A, they can also survive, some of them. Species which are adapted to B, they can also survive to some extent. And it will have its own unique kind of species as well. So for example, when we consider a desert, then we consider, let's suppose, a forest. In between them, the ecotone will be the grassland. So you will find some of the unique species to be found only in the grasslands, not in forest, not in desert. For example, elephants, right? So that larger species diversity and population that you find in the ecotone, this is what is also referred to as the edge effect. And the unique species like elephants that you find particularly in the region of ecotone, they are known as the edge species. Okay, so that goes another important concept. Now, after this, when we talk about ecotones, by the way, they can be natural as well as man-made, right? Now, difference between flagship and keystone. Flagship is what carries a larger symbolism for protection against smuggling, etc. Keystone is that species which is important for the survivability of the ecosystem. Otherwise, the entire ecosystem will collapse. Now, here, which of the following adds or add nitrogen to the soil? Excretion of urea by animals, burning of coal by man, death of vegetation. Which of them will add nitrogen to the soil? So here, when you take a look at it, excretion of urea by animals, urea obviously consists of nitrogen, and it is one of the fertilizers that you provide to the plant in order to enrich the soil of nitrogenous content. So this will definitely end up adding nitrogen. Then, burning of coal by man. Now, if you burn coal, that will produce various different effluents in the air. Emissions will be there in the air. Whatever residue that you will have, for example, fly ash, that doesn't contain nitrogen to such an extent. So here, burning of coal by man is not the correct one. Death of vegetation, decomposition happens. As a consequence of that decomposition, urea, ammonia, these kind of compounds are returned to the soil during the phase of the decomposition, right? So here, 1 and 3 becomes correct. So the correct answer is C, that is 1 and 3 only. Okay, I hope that is understood, right? Now, after this, moving on to the next question. With reference to food chains in ecosystem, consider the following statements. A food chain illustrates the order in which a chain of organisms feed upon each other. Appears to be a straightforward, simple statement which is correct. What is a food chain? Food chain is basically one species being consumed by the other, being consumed by the other. So that linkage is a food chain. Food chains are found within the population of a species. Is that correct? Never. When you talk about food chain, is it the case that this tiger is consumed by another tiger and that is consumed by another tiger ever? No. It will be basically the grass, deer, tiger, that kind of a food chain. So it will not be within the population of the species, but between different species. So second is incorrect. First one was correct. Third, A food chain illustrates the number of each organisms that are eaten by others. Now, the number is never indicated in a food chain. What represents the numerological analysis within the ecosystem when we talk about different trophic levels, that how many numbers of grasses are there, how many numbers of herbivores are there? That is represented by what is referred to as the pyramid of numbers, right? That is a part of ecological pyramid. So you have ecological pyramid. Three types of ecological pyramids exist: pyramid of numbers, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy, indicating the viability and survivability of the ecosystem. Out of all these three, it is only the pyramid of energy which is always upright. Pyramid of numbers can get inverted, particularly when you consider the parasitic ecosystem. Pyramid of biomass can get inverted when you consider the aquatic ecosystem. But pyramid of energy is always straight and upright and follows the 10% rule. Okay? Now, here the third statement also becomes incorrect. So which of them are correct? The correct answer is A, that is one only. Now, which one of the following is the correct sequence of ecosystems in order of decreasing productivity, where the productivity overall decreases? Oceans, lakes, grasslands, and mangroves are the various options out there. Now, out of all of these, where is the productivity going to be the maximum? Now, when we talk about productivity, there is the concept of what is referred to as the primary productivity, which is produced by the producer community. So you have gross primary productivity. That gross primary productivity is basically the overall organic production carried out by all the producer community in that ecosystem, right? But then some of that productivity or organic matter is utilized by the producers themselves to carry out respiration, metabolism, etc. And that is where you get the net primary productivity. What is net primary productivity? It is gross primary productivity minus the organic product required for respiration and metabolism. Okay? So that is an associated concept that you should be aware of. Now here, if you take a look at it, mangroves obviously will have the largest productivity in terms of the density of leaves that you have, in terms of the presence of shallow waters as well, where you have some of the organic products produced by the roots also in those shallow waters. So the canopy cover is also very dense, right? So that is where mangroves will have the highest productivity. And the productivity will be very less in which one? In the case of oceans. Because when we talk about oceans, in oceans you have large areas which lie in the aphotic zone. So being present in the aphotic zone, the producer community is not very dominant. Producer community is actually scarce. Photic and aphotic, the region of ocean where sunlight is available and the region of ocean where the sunlight is not available. So where sunlight is available, plants can grow. Seagrass can grow. But where sunlight is not available, that is where you will not find much of the producer community. It will largely be dominated by the benthic species, right? And there, most of the species for the food, they depend upon the marine snow, which is the organic matter which precipitates and starts falling and sinking down the depth of the ocean. So oceans have the minimum productivity, mangroves have the highest productivity. So that is the correct sequence, that is C. Okay? Now, then in the grasslands, this is more of a geography cum environmental question. Apply logic of geography also, you will get the correct answer. In the grasslands, trees do not replace the grasses as a part of an ecological succession. Because what the question is, or what the examiner is trying to ask out of you is, why do you think there is a situation in the grassland where the grasses are dominant but the trees are not? So when we talk about the region of the grasslands here, Tropical grasslands, if you take an example of, we have talked about grasslands in the geography PYQ analysis as well. A detailed listing of the grasslands also has been done, so we will not repeat that again here. So when we talk about tropical grasslands, this represents a long dry season and a very short rainy season. And when that rainy season comes, it is preceded by thunder and lightning. Now, due to that, and after that long dry season, much of the grasses have become very dry. And as a consequence, the thunder and lightning leads to wildfire incidents. So that means whichever small tree sapling would be trying to grow up into a tree, that would also be burnt very quickly. So they won't be able to survive for a long period of time. Plus the fact that you have very long dry season, trees won't be able to survive, whereas the grasses, they can be populated and they can be prevalent. So here, insects and fungi, that can never be the limitation in terms of the ecological succession, particularly in the grassland. Limited sunlight. Being in the tropics, sunlight is not limited. Water limits and fire. That means rainfall is scanty and wildfire events have occurred. So this is the correct answer, that is C. Okay. Producer community basically refers to the ones autotrophs who produce food. That is the producer community. Photoautotrophs who carry out photosynthesis, chemotrophs who carry out the chemosynthesis and produce food. Okay. Now here, this is, by the way, a question that UPSC has repeated again in later year. We will take a look at that question also. With reference to the food chains in ecosystems, which of the following kind of organism is or are known as decomposer organism or organisms? Benthic species. Benthic species basically are the species that you find at the ocean bottom. That is the benthic zone. They are also referred to as benthos. For example, you have the oarfish. Recently, you had the clownfish, which basically the deep sea fish which emerged, and that became a rage across the world headlines. So those are your benthos. Now, with reference to the food chains, which of these three they are decomposers? Now, virus, fungi, and bacterium. So basically here, fungi and bacterium will be the decomposers. Virus, they do not degrade a species, right? Virus, they mostly act only as parasites where they grow, they thrive in the body of the host species, damaging the host species, right? But they don't degrade the body, because think about it, can virus survive if you have a dead organism? In that, can the virus survive for a long period of time? No. For the virus to survive and for the virus to thrive, they need the host to be living and provide them with consistent nutrition. So that is where one automatically eliminates itself and you get the correct answer simply by eliminating virus. So that is the correct answer, right? Now, when we talk about the stages of decomposition, that becomes important for your examination. So how many stages of decomposition are there? There are 5 stages. What are those stages? First is fragmentation, where the dead organism is broken down into multiple smaller parts. That is fragmentation. After fragmentation, you have leaching, where all the liquid materials, after getting degraded by the bacterium and the microbes, fungi, etc., the liquid that seeps down, the organic liquid seeps down into the soil. After that, you have catabolism. Catabolism, where the enzymes secreted by the microorganisms, they further break down the organic matter. In the meanwhile, during the process taking place, you have the release of gases like CO2, methane, etc., which are consistently released. After that, which is the other species? After that, you have the, or which is the other stage rather? After that, you have the stage of humification, where the organic matter is converted into a dark brown to brownish black kind of amorphous soil-like substance which we refer to as humus. That is humification. But this is not the final stage of decomposition. After this, you have the stage that is mineralization, where eventually you have all the organic matter which is completely consumed by the microbes, because humus also contains organic matter. So that is also worked upon by microbes, and then you have inorganic nutrients. Those inorganic nutrients are then provided back into the soil. So after the stage of mineralization, no organic matter is left. Okay? Again, this was a concept which was repeated by UPSC. It was in 2023. So that is why this becomes important for you. No organic matter remains. Now, that means once the complete cycle of decomposition is completed, then no organic matter is left. Now, for decomposition, what do you require? Moisture, oxygen supply, and warm temperature. If these three are present, rate of decomposition will be very fast. Okay? Now, which one of the following is the process involved in photosynthesis? Potential energy is released to form free energy. Free energy is converted into potential energy and stored. Food is oxidized to release carbon dioxide and water. Oxygen is taken and carbon dioxide and water vapor are given out. A simple, straightforward question. You can ascribe it in science and tech also, or environment ecology as well. So here basically think about the question carefully before replying the answer D. In the process of photosynthesis, is oxygen produced or is carbon dioxide produced? During the process of photosynthesis, which you would have read in your basic sciences in class 6th or 7th or even earlier, photosynthesis is where consumption of carbon dioxide takes place and production of oxygen takes place. Isn't it? The energy from the sun is utilized, and that is when you have through the pores, the energy of the sun is utilized, then you have carbon dioxide which is taken in, and that is where you have the energy which is produced. So it is a free energy of the sun which is utilized to produce what? You have adenosine triphosphate, ADP, then ATP. So that is the storage or the organic production which happens, isn't it? Now, all those who were saying B and C, think about it. In the option C and D, food is oxidized to release carbon dioxide and water. Does that happen in photosynthesis? No. It is in respiration when carbon dioxide is released, not during photosynthesis. Again, carbon dioxide and water vapor are given out. Again, does not happen in photosynthesis. Right? So here the correct answer is free energy is converted into potential energy and stored. Right? Yes, Sahil. More questions come from the concept. That is what I want you to understand. That more questions are driven from concept as compared to only the protected areas or only some of the unique aspects. That is what you should extract from this session. Now, among the following organisms, which one does not belong to the class of other three? In simple terms, what is the odd one out here? Which one is the odd one out? Now, crab, mite, scorpion, and spider. Now, this is again something which is YD. This is again which is about the basic zoology or the basics of science and tech also, which you can consider. But then it is about species, and hence it has been largely classified into the portion of environment ecology. Now, crabs, they belong to the category of crustaceans, right? So, crustaceans, the shell-bearing organisms that you have, shrimps, prawns, crayfish, right? Copepods, all these are crustaceans. Then crab, krill, all these are copepod or crustaceans. But then you have certain species which belong to the category of arachnids. So it is within the arachnids that you find the insects, the scorpion, the spiders, and so on. So here, crab, mite, scorpion, and spider. So the odd one out in this case is crab. Crab belongs to the species of crustaceans, whereas the remaining three, they belong to the category of arachnids. If you did not know it till today, at least today you know it, so you are better prepared for the question if it is asked. Okay. Now, which one of the following is the correct sequence of the food chain? Diatoms, crustaceans, herrings. These are the three species. Now, here what you need to be aware of to get the question correct is what these species are. Again, your basic knowledge of geography again will come to your help. When we talk about marine deposits, ocean deposits, in ocean deposits, one of the largest deposits at the base of the ocean is of the microscopic diatoms. So these diatoms are the plankton species which produce food. So diatoms will be in the first part of the food chain. What are herrings? Herrings are basically small fish species that you have. Right? So those fish species will consume the shrimps, the small shrimps that you have, the small copepods that you have that we have talked about. They are consumed by herrings. So here, diatoms are consumed by crustaceans and they are then consumed by herrings. So A becomes the correct answer in this particular case. Okay? Now, consider the following. The phenomena of hibernation can be observed in which of the above kind of animals? Hibernation. Hibernation is a long winter sleep in general in order to escape the shortage of resources, slowing down of metabolism during the winter months when the conditions become very harsh. Right? So you basically have hibernation, then you have estivation, then you have brumation as well. Right? All these three are different kinds of suspension activities indicated by the organisms in order to escape the harsh outside condition. And you also have some of the microbes indicating the property of diapause, where there is an indefinite suspension of the bodily activities. So bats, bears, and rodents, all the three, they basically will be able to hibernate. They all are known to have carried out hibernation in some form or the other. So C in this case will be the correct answer. Which of the following, a simple question, which of the following adds or add carbon dioxide to the carbon cycle on the planet Earth? Volcanic eruption, respiration, photosynthesis, decay of organic matter. Which of them will add carbon dioxide? A simple elimination will again do the job. Now, volcanic eruption produces gases like water vapor, nitrous oxides, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, some amount of carbon monoxide. Right? All these are released during volcanic eruption. So volcanic eruption definitely will produce carbon dioxide. Respiration will produce carbon dioxide. You take in oxygen, provide carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis, consumption of carbon dioxide, production of oxygen. Incorrect. Decay of organic matter, methane, carbon dioxide, etc. Hydrogen sulfide in certain cases, they are definitely released. So here the correct answer is going to be C, that is 1, 2, and 4. All are correct. So why do you think that photosynthesis also produces carbon dioxide? These are kinds of very simple things that you should be aware of. Okay, right. Now, when we talk about carbon cycle is basically the regeneration and reproduction of carbon in the entire ecosystem. So here you will think about it, that when we talk about carbon dioxide, you know, in atmosphere, the percentage of carbon dioxide has been coming down if you consider the long-term trend of billions of years. But if you consider the past a couple of 100 years, obviously carbon dioxide percentage has gone up. But earlier, you had much larger amount of carbon dioxide than what you have present today. Whenever there has been a spate of volcanic eruption or degasification from the interior of Earth, always carbon dioxide proportion in the atmosphere has gone up, increasing the temperature of planet Earth. Now, carbon dioxide is produced by the general process of respiration, volcanic eruption. All these from the vents on the ground, carbon dioxide is produced. It is consumed by the plants to carry out photosynthesis. Greater the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, greater growth of plants in the region, what is also known as the concept of carbon fertilization. Now, these plants, they store the carbon. Our bodies, they store the carbon. After all the species across the planet, they are carbon-based species. Right? Now, these plants and animals, when they get deposited, dead and deposited over a period of time, they can turn out to be fossil fuels as well. Respiration provides that carbon dioxide back. So that completes what is referred to as the carbon cycle. It is a gaseous cycle. Right? So you would have read about the basic concept of biogeochemical cycles. You have two types of biogeochemical cycles, gaseous and sedimentary. So this is your gaseous cycle. Okay. Now, then, which one of the following regions in India has a combination of mangrove forest, evergreen forest, and deciduous forest? All the three types are to be found: mangrove, evergreen, and deciduous. Now here, again, a simple question. North coastal Andhra Pradesh will not have evergreen forest. Southwest Bengal, right? Again, you will not find the presence of evergreen forest there. You will find the moist tropical deciduous forest, but not evergreen. Some stretches of semi-evergreen also, but not evergreen, right? Then southern Saurashtra, evergreen is not to be found. All these three are to be found in the region of Andaman Nicobar Islands. So again, a very simple question. Which one of the following is the best description of the term ecosystem? Now, ecosystem is what? Ecosystem, community of plant and animals, including the biotic and the abiotic factors which influences them, where they live. So when we talk about ecosystem, a community of organisms together with the environment in which they live. So the correct answer in this case is C. All right. Now, due to some reasons, if there is a huge fall in the population of the species of butterflies, what could be its likely consequences? Right? If butterfly population declines, what could be the consequences of this? Pollination of some plants could be adversely affected. Butterflies, after all, are very important pollinators, isn't it? From one flower to another, you will find that the butterfly population basically helps in pollination and the reproduction in the plant species. So this is correct. There could be a drastic increase in fungal infections of some cultivated plants. Now, there is no such correlation between the butterfly and reduction or increase in fungal infections. In most of the cases, they are mutually exclusive. So this is incorrect, right? Then it could lead to a fall in the population of some species of wasps, spiders, and birds. Now here, in the larger food chain, butterflies, they form as some of the part of the diet in the larger food chain. So obviously, they can get impacted, right? So here, this can lead to some amount of impact on the population. So the correct answer is going to be C, that is 1 and 3 only. Okay? Now, this is a plant which has been in news for almost now a decade. UPSC has only asked it in 2018, but again, this is in news when you talk about the mangrove population, etc. Why is a plant called Prosopis juliflora often mentioned in the news? Prosopis juliflora is what? Is an invasive alien species. Not the IAS that you think about. It is basically invasive alien species. Now, whenever you have invasive alien species, they basically will impact the biodiversity of the region. They will consume the resources at a much faster rate. Their growth will be at a much faster rate, and the local variety and the local species of biodiversity, their growth will be impacted, right? So this is your Prosopis juliflora. Now it is native to which region? Mexico, South America, and the region of Caribbean. It was brought in India, obviously, by the British, and very wide ecological adaptability. So that means they can grow in various different conditions of altitude, various different drier conditions also, moist conditions also, shallow soil also, deep soil also. So most of the invasive alien species you will find they have a greater adaptability, right? Now, this year there was another one of those invasive alien species of plant which was brought in by the Britishers again. That was Micania micrantha. Now, that is something which is increasing its spread in the region of some of the tiger reserves, which is impacting the tiger population, because when these invasive alien species, their number increases, obviously the herbivore population will be impacted, because the herbivores don't find many of the species palatable, so they face a lack of food, due to which the carnivore species also gets impacted. So it tends to reduce the biodiversity in the area in which it grows, right? So that is the Prosopis juliflora. Okay. Now, another question. Leaf litter decomposes. So look at it. The aspect of decomposition is being repeated again and again. So you should be aware of that. Leaf litter decomposes faster than in any other biome, and as a result, the soil surface is often almost bare. Means complete stage of decomposition, mineralization has been reached. Apart from trees, the vegetation is composed of plant forms that reach up to the canopy vicariously. That means very tall plants, right? By climbing the trees or growing as epiphytes rooted in the upper branch of the trees. This is most likely the description of conifers. Rate of decomposition is slow. Dry deciduous, moisture is less, rate of decomposition is slow. You won't find many epiphytes. Mangroves. Now, in certain areas, mangroves will be there, but the canopy, the height won't be very high. So the correct answer in this case is tropical rainforest. Okay, due to high amount of temperature, high amount of rainfall. So a straightforward, simple question. Now, in 2023, again, a question was asked on the same concept. Look at this. This is a statement-based question. The soil in tropical rainforest is rich in nutrients. The high temperature and moisture of tropical rainforest cause dead organic matter in the soil to decompose quickly. Which one of the following is correct in respect of the above statement? So again, a question of the decomposition. So here basically, statement 1, soil in tropical rainforest is rich in nutrients? Absolutely not. Due to heavy rainfall, there is leaching. At the same time, you basically have the rate of decomposition being so high that even the organic matter, they are returned into minerals. So basically, no organic matter is present. The high temperature and moisture of the tropical rainforest cause dead organic matter in the soil to decompose quickly. This is correct. So here, only one statement or the answer is correct, that is D. That is, 1 is incorrect and statement 2 is correct. So again, very logic-based questions are being asked from the same concept of ecosystem, food chain, decomposition, its rate, and now another question of the grassland that I told you. The vegetation of savanna consists of grassland with scattered small trees, but extensive areas have no trees, large stretches of only grasses. The forest development in such areas is generally kept in check by one or more or a combination of some conditions. Which of the following are the conditions? So, in nutshell, what are the conditions due to which the tree population is less and the grasses are dominant in the region of tropical grassland? Burrowing animals and termites? Obviously not. Fire? the wildfire events which occur in the region of tropical grasslands that we talked about in the early part of the session. Grazing herbivores, like the elephants, who are also known as the natural gardeners, who basically ensure the pruning of the grasses and clearing of the paths thereby. So this is also there, correct. Automatically, if you know these two, then you are at the correct answer. But nonetheless, seasonal rainfall. Scarcity of rainfall is what does not allow the trees to thrive. Soil properties is irrelevant in this case because the trees do not have other supporting conditions to survive. So here the correct answer is going to be C, that is 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Now, after that, consider the following animals: hedgehog, marmot, and pangolin. To reduce the chance of being captured by predators, which of the above organism rolls up or roll up and protects its or their vulnerable parts? So hedgehog, marmot, and pangolin. All that you need to be aware of is how these species look like, right? You will be able to get at your answer. This is a pangolin and eaters primarily. This is your typical hedgehog, and this is what is a marmot. Okay? Now, out of these three, if you think about it, this is a hedgehog, this is a pangolin, and this is a marmot. So now that you think about it, which will be the correct answer? Hedgehog, marmot, and pangolin. So hedgehog wraps or basically forms a kind of a ball-like shape. Marmot is too big to form a circular protective shape, but pangolin has got that scales again in order to move away from the carnivore species. So hedgehog and pangolin is the correct answer in this case. Okay? Yes, pangolin is one of the most poached mammal in the world. Correct. Very good. Now, which of the following have species that can establish a symbiotic relationship with the other organisms? Cnidarians, fungi, and protozoa. So which can establish a symbiotic relationship? Now, when we talk about cnidarians, many of us might not have an idea what cnidarians are. So cnidarians, they are basically aquatic invertebrates, right? So corals, sea anemones. Now, a sea anemone, or what is also known as pronounced as a sea anemone. Now, sea anemones, they basically have a symbiotic relationship with the clownfish. Due to ocean acidification, the sea anemone as well as the clownfish, they get impacted. Corals have a symbiotic relationship with zooxanthellae, right? So cnidarians obviously are able to form the kind of symbiotic relationship. First is correct. The fungi. Fungi, they readily form symbiotic relationship with, for example, algae, and they form what we refer to as lichens. Isn't it? So this is also correct. And then you have the protozoa. Protozoa, they also form symbiotic relationship not only with unicellular, but also slightly larger organisms out there. So that also is able to establish a kind of a symbiotic relationship. So the correct answer in this case is going to be D, that is 1, 2, and 3, right? Now, which of the following are detritivores? What is detritivores? Detritivores are those which feed on dead, decaying organism. That is detritivores. Now, detritivores generally carry out the stage of fragmentation in the entire cycle of decomposition. Okay? Earthworms, jellyfish, millipedes, seahorse, and woodlice. Now, jellyfish, they are a kind of predatory species, isn't it? You have the jellyfish which are able to consume some of the other species out there, right? So jellyfish obviously, because it is a carnivore, won't be a detritivore, right? If you know this, eliminate 2. Wherever 2 is present, eliminate that. On the face of it, this question might appear that they expect us to know about all the species, but no. If you have a slight idea even about jellyfish, you will get the correct answer, right? The same is the case with seahorse also. Seahorse, a fish species, a species of fish belonging to the fish species, they are also carnivores. So these two can be eliminated. Earthworms, millipedes, and woodlice, the organisms, woodlice being a small insect for that matter, they consume the dead and decay, right? Now, after that, in the nature, which of the following is or are more likely to be found surviving on a surface without soil? Fern, lichen, moss, or mushroom? Now here, ferns, they require some amount of soil. This is what you have as lichens. Okay? This is what we have as lichens. Lichens basically form a symbiotic relationship, as we have discussed, between the algae and fungi. Now, these are also what are referred to as the pioneer species, right? Pioneer species. In terms of ecological succession, these are the species which straight away end up inhabiting a particular harsh environment where even due to lack of soil, they can end up growing. If the conditions are moist, if the air is clean, they can grow on various surfaces. This is also an indicator of the pollution load, particularly sulfur dioxide load in the air. So if the air pollution is high, lichens won't be found there. So this is also a kind of indicator species. Right? Now, then when we talk about mosses, they are again one of the pioneer species which dominated the planet, the rocky surface of the planet, for around 4 to 5 million years before you had the some species which started coming in. So they grow in damp conditions on the various surfaces. So even in your day-to-day experiences, you would have seen if a particular cemented area is very, very damp and consistently damp, you will start observing some of the mosses to be growing in that area. So they do not require the presence of soil. So 2 and 3 here, they don't require the presence of soil, whereas 1 and 4, they do. So the correct answer in this case, that is 2 and 3, right? Yes, ferns are the small plant species. Lichens, you have to understand, indicator species for air pollution, right? India has a lichen park. In which state is it situated? Situated in the state of Uttarakhand, right? Around the Pithoragarh region in the Munsiari district, you have the lichen park which is situated. Particularly where the sulfur dioxide is high, lichens won't be found. Now mushrooms also require some amount of substrate like soil, right? Some amount of substrate is required. Hydroponics is being practiced in the case of mushrooms, but then overall there you are creating an artificial soil-like condition. Let's suppose you were confused, but you were sure about lichens and mosses, but you were confused whether mushrooms will be there in the answer or not. Look at the options. That also could have guided you. You don't have 2, 3, and 4 as the answer. So that also could have guided you to the correct answer. Okay? Now, consider the following kinds of organisms: copepods, cyanobacteria, diatoms, and foraminifera. Which of the above are the primary producers in the food chains of the oceans? We have talked about copepods just now, belonging to the category of crustaceans. Cyanobacterium and diatoms, they are the phytoplankton species, right? They are the producer communities. So if you take a look at copepods, amongst the crustacean species, very small, they feed on the small planktons out there. And then this is your foraminifera, again feeding on the small producer species. So these are your primary consumers. These are not your producer species. So 1 and 4 can be eliminated. So the correct answer is going to be B, that is 2 and 3 only. I hope by application of logic, most of you would be able to arrive at the correct answer. Even if you have followed this discussion through and through, by the end of the session, you will feel much more confident in terms of knowing what these species are. That is why I have attached these particular aspects so that you are able to relate pictographically with these particular species as well. Okay. Now, in case of which of the following biogeochemical cycles, the weathering of rocks is the main source of release of nutrients to enter the cycle? Now, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, sulfur cycle. Which of these are primarily dependent on the weathering of rocks? So it is basically the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus cycle is a part of the biogeochemical cycle, which is also what is sedimentary cycle. Now, it is obviously less efficient as compared to the gaseous cycle followed by nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, water cycle, all these, oxygen cycle. These are gaseous in nature. They are more efficient and are faster, whereas sedimentary cycles, they are very slow. Now, phosphorus, which is largely present in excreta, the guanos that you have, the bird droppings that you have. To the west of South America, we have discussed in places in news, you have a very rich, phosphorus-rich island in the name of Guano Island, where you have large amount of these guano droppings or the bird droppings, which are then eventually synthesized into phosphorus. Then the bones, they consist of phosphates, right? So the animal products or the animal outputs, they get deposited over a period of time into the shallow water bodies, lakes, runoff, and then they get drained into certain area over a period of time. Plate tectonics as well as the diastrophic forces from the interior, the diastrophism, that leads to the raising up or the moving down of the rocks, which makes these phosphorus-rich rocks available for overall extraction. Even the kelp forests that you have, they are also a rich source of phosphate. Now, that is your basically the phosphorus cycle. Okay. Now, after this, the next question, a very simple, straightforward question. What is blue carbon? Carbon captured by oceans and coastal ecosystems, carbon sequestered in forest biomass and agricultural soil, carbon contained in petroleum and natural gas, carbon present in atmosphere. Which is blue carbon? So simple, straightforward. Carbon captured by oceans and coastal ecosystem. Oceanic surface through the air-water interface becomes a large-scale absorber of carbon dioxide, thereby removing the greenhouse gas from the atmosphere, right? So that is your blue carbon. You have the green carbon, where the carbon is absorbed by the plant species due to the process of photosynthesis. Then you have, in this year, you had in news throughout the year, the discussion about teal carbon. We have covered it in the current affairs classes as well as in the basic foundation classes. So teal carbon is what? The carbon which is stored in wetlands. Beautiful, MK. Wetlands and marshes. That is where the carbon is stored. Okay, so that is your teal carbon. Yes, a detailed study was carried out in the region of Keoladeo. So Keoladeo for the study of teal carbon was in news this particular year. Now, again, a conceptual question. So observe how many conceptual questions are coming from the portion of ecosystem and the region of the biomes, the basic concept of food chains. If rainforest and tropical forests are the lungs of the earth, then surely wetlands function as its kidneys. Which of the following functions of wetlands best reflects the above statement? Now here, when you take a look at the question, kidneys. Kidneys, what is the role that the kidneys do? They take in the impurities from the system, isn't it? They trap the impurities. So if you take a look at it, water cycle in wetlands involves surface runoff, subsoil percolation and evaporation. Not at all. While this is true in the case of the wetlands, but it is not reflecting the role as a kidney. Algae form the nutrient base upon which fish, crustacean, mollusks, birds, reptiles and mammals thrive. Not at all relevant even to the question in this. Wetlands play a vital role in maintaining sedimentation, balance and soil alkalinization. Now again, this is not associated with the correct answer. The correct answer is basically the ability of the plants within the wetlands to trap the heavy contaminants. That is where wetlands also play a role of purifying the water which is provided. So the correct answer is going to be D. Okay. Now, which of the following are nitrogen fixing plants? You have alfalfa, which is generally used as fodder, amaranth, which is generally consumed, or in local lingo, what is Rajgira as well. So amaranth, chickpea, clover, then you have kulfa and spinach. Which of these are nitrogen fixing? Now this can be slightly confusing, I understand. But then here the logic which has to be applied is, see, out of these particular listed plants, right? If you don't know it, fair enough, skip it all. But if you have to apply logic here, what is the logic that you will apply? Out of all of these plants out there, the one which takes in maximum amount of nutrient from the soil, so that is your spinach. After all, you would have heard spinach is very nutritious. Spinach has got a lot of nutrients. So spinach is one of those plants which drags a lot of the nutrients out of the soil. It drains the soil of the nutrients and the nutrition. So spinach obviously is not nitrogen fixing. That is the key here. So here the correct answer is 1, 3, and 4. These three are the nitrogen fixing. Okay. So if let's suppose such a kind of a question comes, if you are able to solve it by logic, fair enough. Otherwise, please don't risk it. If let's suppose the options are not helping you, please don't risk it. Nothing is basically justifying a negative marks. Better to gain 0 than a negative marks. Okay. But such questions are limited. Bio-rock technology is talked about in which of the following situations? Easy question. Restoration of damaged coral reefs, development of building materials using plant residues, identification of areas for extraction or exploration of shale gas, providing salt licks for wild animals in forests or protected areas. Now, bio-rock is for restoration of damaged coral reefs. What is that bio-rock technology? So in the case of the bio-rock technology, what is done? In a particular area underwater, you have remaining or the residue of, let's suppose, old concrete, old boats, old metal pieces. They are provided in a particular area, right? Now, small amount of charge is passed through. A very small amount of charge is passed through. Now, what this charge does, it mimics the basic science experiment that you would have done, electrolysis, isn't it? Now, even if let's suppose you have an older sunk boat, that will also have metallic pieces. If you have an older concrete column, it will also have some of the, obviously, RCC reinforced cement concrete that you have. It will have those steel bars, etc., isn't it? Now, all those will start acting as electrodes. Now, as they start acting as electrodes, that is where you have electrolysis and accumulation of calcium carbonate, which happens. Now, this calcium carbonate serves as the substratum on which the corals can thrive. Some of the corals are reintroduced in the area to provide for the species diversity, and the rest of them automatically come into that region. In India, this bio-rock technology is practiced, yes or no? Yes. Both across the eastern as well as the western coastline. Across the eastern coastline, around the Tamil Nadu and the Puducherry coastline, this has been brought into implementation, and across the western coastline of the coast of Mumbai as well, you have this particular bio-rock technology which has been implemented. This was, however, you have to consider this, that bio-rock technology was in use for the year since 2018 onwards. It was asked in 2022. For the full last year, again, bio-rock technology has been dominating the news headlines, right? So that is where current affairs becomes vital. Another question associated with the portion of current affairs which has remained in news for the past few years now is the Miyawaki method. The Miyawaki method is well known for promotion of commercial farming in arid and semi-arid areas, development of gardens using genetically modified flora, creation of mini forest in urban areas, harvesting wind energy in coastal areas or on sea surfaces. So when we talk about, let's suppose, Miyawaki method. Miyawaki method is basically a kind of an afforestation program in urban areas where local and fast-growing varieties of trees are sown in a region, and that provides for the green space, provides for carbon sequestration and other ecosystem services as well. So that is the creation of mini forest in the region of urban areas. That is the correct answer. Now, certain species of which one of the following organisms are well known as the cultivators of fungi? So here, in which of these species will you find the cultivators of fungi where the fungi oftentimes grow? Now, this is basically where you have the correct answer as ant species. Now, most of you, I would have suggested throughout the year as well, when we would have interacted, that these are the kind of questions for which you don't have any standard book from where the questions are asked. And this is where UPSC has been following a trend for the past couple of years now, more than 2 to 3 years now, where the questions are being asked from the various different science docuseries and ecological docuseries which are out there, like Our Planet, Life on Planet Earth, etc. Those of you appearing for this year, obviously you don't have that much time, but those of you appearing for 2026 and beyond, do definitely check out the docuseries. These are some of the concepts discussed in detail. Now, these ant species oftentimes observe the growth of the fungi in around their colonies, around their body systems as well, which leads to the eventual death in many of the cases. Okay? Now, consider the following statements. Some microorganisms can grow in environment with temperature above boiling point of water. Some microorganisms can grow in environment with temperature below the freezing point of water. Some microorganisms can grow in a highly acidic environment with a pH below 3. How many of the above statements are correct? Now, if you think about it, the first statement is absolutely correct. So you have some of the microbes which are found in the hot springs and the geysers as well. They are known as the thermophiles. Thermophiles. Okay. Then you have microorganisms in temperature below the freezing point, obviously. So microbes, they have the ability to adapt at a greater extent, and modification and genetic evolution as well, right? So they can grow in temperatures below freezing point in certain areas, and also in the region of highly acidic water bodies as well. So here all the three statements are correct, right? Now, then we come to certain set of questions associated with pollution. So look at it. Overall, the large chunk of questions have been asked from ecosystem. So please do not do the mistake of relying your study only on the places in new or the protected areas, or only about the critically endangered species, right? I will even show you the minimum number of questions asked about whether it is critically endangered or not. Now coming to the questions associated with pollution. Very, very simple generic questions. Application of logic is required. According to the EPA, which one of the following is the largest source of sulfur dioxide emission? Locomotives using fossil fuel, ships using fossil fuel, extraction of metal from ores, power plants using fossil fuels. Now here, obviously, if you think about it, let's suppose you are getting confused in locomotives using fossil fuel, ships using fossil fuel, or power plants. After all, fossil fuel combustion is what leads to generation of sulfur dioxide. Now, which will have a greater amount of fossil fuel combustion? Do locomotives, all the locomotives or all the ships combined, will they burn more fossil fuel as compared to a power plant? Obviously not, even at a per unit scale. So that is where power plants using fossil fuels, they are the largest source of sulfur dioxide emissions. Okay? Now, consider the following statements. Many chewing gums found in the market are considered a source of environmental pollution. Statement 2. Many chewing gums contain plastic as a gum base. So here, which one of the following is correct in respect of the above statement? Think about it. Param, coal-based thermal power plant versus diesel or petrol. You have greater amount of coal-based power plant, isn't it? So that is one of the larger emissions of sulfur dioxide. Now here, many chewing gums found in the market are considered to be a source of environmental pollution. Absolutely yes. Many of them don't degrade very easily and they move through the food chain as well. Many chewing gums contain plastic as a gum base. That is also correct, and that is why they are a source of environmental pollution. So both statement 1 and 2 are correct, and statement 2 explains the statement 1, right? So the correct answer in this case is A. Now, this was again in news throughout the year, and hence, with reference to perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, what is PFAS, that are used in making many consumer products, consider the following statements. Now, these are long-lasting pollutants, right? Long-lived pollutants. You have the short-lived pollutants and you have the long-lived pollutants. So these stay in the atmosphere for a long time, in the ecosystem for a very long period of time, right? So here, PFAS are found to be widespread in drinking water, food, and food packaging materials. Now, just for those of us who are not aware, PFAS, basically perfluoroalkyl or polyfluoroalkyl, these are to be found in the firefighting foams, in the microwave popcorn bags that you get in the market, water-resistant clothing, paint, stain-resistant product, cosmetics, pesticides, the photographic reels that you have, stain-resistant furniture. So you can see the prominence is almost prevalent. Everywhere it is there, right? Now, many of the times they get consumed in small trace amount. And that is when bioaccumulation, biomagnification can eventually happen, which basically leads to, so even in your non-stick cooking pans, they are to be found. That is why it was in news, because of a detailed study which talked about the presence of PFAS in larger amount of non-stick cooking utensils. Now, it can cause renal or kidney and testicular cancer, lower infant birth weights, the problem of high blood pressure, then decreased vaccine response in children, higher cholesterol. There can be various different issues. These are what are also referred to as the forever chemicals, because they will stay in the ecosystem for a very prolonged period of time. So PFAS are to be found in drinking water, food, and food packaging materials. Obviously, yes. They are not easily degraded in the environment. Correct. Persistent exposure to PFAS can lead to bioaccumulation in animal bodies. This is also correct. So the correct answer is D, 1, 2, and 3. Bioaccumulation is different from biomagnification. What is bioaccumulation? Where in the same organism, due to consumption of the same source of food, the level of contamination keeps on increasing. But when we talk about biomagnification, that is where over the subsequent trophic levels in the food chain, the amount of contamination keeps on increasing. So that is mostly observed in persistent organic pollutants, right? So that is the case of bioaccumulation and biomagnification, right? Now, consider the following statements regarding mercury pollution. For mercury pollution, what is the convention that we have in place across the globe? Think about it. Let me know in the comment section. Gold mining activity is a source of mercury pollution in the world. Most of the kind of mining activities have mercury as a contaminant or as a pollutant. So this is correct. Beautiful. It is the Minamata Convention for the mercury contamination. Has India ratified the Minamata Convention? Yes, it has. Now, coal-based thermal power plants cause mercury pollution. Is that correct? Yes. Because in the coal-based thermal power plants, what is the output? Fly ash. That fly ash consists of mercury, selenium, and all the heavy contaminants that you can think about. There is no known safe level of exposure to mercury. This is incorrect. Because in many of the cases, the known safe exposure level is something which varies from 0.01 to 0.1 milligram, right, in a volume of water, etc. So that is where 3 is incorrect. So the correct answer is B. Anyways, this is a kind of an absolute statement. So that also would help you eliminate that with simple logic. Okay? Now, consider the following in terms of the effluents: carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, ozone, sulfur dioxide. Excess of which of the above in the environment is or are the causes of acid rain? This is a question again which UPSC has repeated twice. So this is a simple question. Now, acid rain is caused why? When you have nitrogen oxides, right, and sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. That combines with water vapor to produce nitric acid, a dilute nitric acid, or a dilute sulfuric acid. This can be brought down in the form of rainfall, right? What is known as wet deposit, or they can be carried by the winds and they can be deposited on the surfaces, what is known as dry deposit. So here the correct answer is 2 and 4. That is the correct answer. So if you take a look at it, this is the entire cycle of acid rain, where basically nitrogen oxides that you have, right? Sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides, all of them, they will produce the sulfuric acid, nitric acid, and that is how eventually you will have the winds which will move. So the winds can carry out dry deposit, then you can have the rainfall caused, that will cause the wet deposit. This leads to degradation of the soil becomes acidic, so the ability to support plants reduces. Animals, many of them in the larval stages, they get impacted. At the same time, water bodies, they turn acidic, so their ability to absorb carbon, that starts to reduce. Monuments get damaged, and for us humans, that deposition of acid or exposure to that acid causes skin cancer and other diseases as well. Okay? Now, among the following crops, which one is the most important anthropogenic source of both methane and nitrous oxide? Now here, methane and nitrous oxide, both of them are released in large amount from which of them? Rice. Isn't it? Simple, straightforward question. Why rice? Because it is in the case of rice where you carry out the flood irrigation, where you basically, in the rice field, you have a large amount of water, standing water. That is where the saplings, they will produce organic matter, methane is produced, and that methane eventually is released in the atmosphere. Now again, the same question was repeated. Acid rain is caused by the pollution of environment by. Now we have just discussed this, so I don't think we need to discuss the entire thing again. Nitrous oxide and sulfur dioxide. Right? Now, with reference to polyethylene terephthalate, or what is known as PET, you would have heard about the PET bottles. The plastic bottles, they are also known as the PET bottles, the use of which is so widespread in our daily lives. Consider the following statements. Its fibers can be blended with wool and cotton fibers to reinforce their properties. Now that is correct. Plastic can be reinforced with various substances to make them stronger, right? Much more durable as well. So this is correct. Containers made of it can be used to store any alcoholic beverage. Never advisable to store alcoholic beverage in plastic, because over a period of time, the alcohol tends to dissolve some amount of the plastic materials as well. So this is incorrect, right? Now, bottles made of it can be recycled into other products. Definitely, yes, the PET bottles can be recycled to form other bottles. Articles made of it can be easily disposed of by incineration without causing greenhouse gas emission. If you burn plastic, will that not cause greenhouse gas emission? Obviously, yes. So here, incorrect. So the correct answer in this case is going to be A, that is 1 and 3. Okay? Now, again, a logic-based, it might appear factual, but a logic-based question. In the context of WHO air quality guidelines, consider the following statements. The 24-hour mean of PM 2.5 should not exceed 15 microgram per meter cube, and annual mean of PM 2.5 should not exceed 5 microgram per meter cube. In a year, the highest levels of ozone pollution occur during the periods of inclement weather. Ozone, we are talking about ground level ozone, and inclement means adverse. PM 10 microns can penetrate the lung barrier and enter the bloodstream. Excessive ozone in the air can trigger asthma. Now PM 2.5, let's take a look at the options. Let's assume we don't know the data. The WHO guidelines we are not aware of, right? How do you solve the question in that case? So in a year, the highest level of ozone pollution is to be found during adverse weather? No. Ground level ozone is produced in the presence of nitrous oxides, in the presence of volatile organic compounds, and a definite necessity presence of sunlight. That is what produces ground level ozone. This ground level ozone in the presence of sunlight can then react with partially burnt and unburnt hydrocarbons, and that is what produces the peroxyacetyl nitrate, which forms what is known as the photochemical smog. So for the entire production of that, sunlight is a must. Sunlight won't be available in adverse weather condition, but in fair weather condition. So the second statement we know is incorrect. So if the second statement is incorrect, so that automatically eliminates two of the options. PM10 is larger in size, can penetrate the lung barrier and enter the bloodstream. No, PM 2.5 can do that, not PM10. So this becomes incorrect again. So you can eliminate this as well. So automatically 1 and 4, that answer is arrived at. Okay, so that is the WHO condition for the required PM 2.5 concentration. Recently, you had a global agency, or rather a Swiss-based firm, IQAir, which had come up with the data of PM 2.5 concentration across the world, where you had the most polluted city to be present in Bernihart in Assam. So that is a part of this year's current affairs as well, where you had the WHO air quality standards being discussed. Now, magnetite particles suspected to cause neurodegenerative problems are generated as environmental pollutants from which of the following? Brakes of motor vehicles, engines of motor vehicles, microwave stoves within homes, power plants, and telephone lines. Magnetite is what? Iron particles, isn't it? Small amount of iron particles. Now, which of these processes will produce iron particles? Can microwave stoves within homes produce iron particles? Obviously not. Can telephone lines produce iron particles? If that would have been the case, why to have iron ore mines? Just have more telephone lines? Obviously not. Eliminate 5. If you eliminate 5, you get the correct answer. Okay? Now, why is there a concern about copper smelting plants? The process of smelting of copper. They may release lethal quantity of carbon monoxide into the environment. The copper slag can cause the leaching of some heavy metals into the environment. They may release sulfur dioxide as a pollutant. Now the first statement, they may release lethal quantities of carbon monoxide. Now you see, copper smelting is what? From the ore you get the pure copper form. Now that is basically carried out by a redox reaction or a reduction reaction. Reduction is what? Opposite of oxidation, isn't it? Now, carbon does react with that ore. That is where carbon monoxide is initially produced. But the copper in the oxide form provides the oxygen radical, which again reacts with carbon monoxide, and that produces CO2. So CO2 is released because carbon monoxide is consumed from the oxygen radical in the copper, and CO2 is released, not carbon monoxide. Okay, the copper slag. So again, elimination of one was the key point, will give you the correct answer in this case also. Copper slag can cause the leaching of some heavy metals into the environment. This is correct. Because of the various different contaminants, they will percolate within the soil. They may release sulfur dioxide as a pollutant during the smelting process. That is again correct. So the correct answer is B, 2 and 3 only. Now, with reference to furnace oil, consider the following statements. It is a product of oil refineries. Some industries use it to generate power. Its use causes sulfur emissions into the environment. Oxygen radical, basically, when you talk about the case of, let's suppose the copper smelting. Smelting is what? Are we aware about the term smelting? Yes or no? I hope we are aware about the term smelting. Smelting is when you take an ore and that ore is then basically purified to form the pure copper, right? So that is when some of the carbon compounds, like you have black carbon, etc., which are also used in the redox reaction. Now, that means they will react with the copper ore at high temperature. That is when initially carbon monoxide is produced, but that reacts with the oxygen which is present in the copper ore. Ore is an impurity. It reacts with the oxygen in the copper ore, and carbon monoxide gets converted into carbon dioxide. So that is then released. Carbon monoxide is not released. It is reacting with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide. Okay? Now, why sulfur dioxide is produced, or why sulfur can be produced? Any kind of such fossil fuel being burnt or such energy mineral being burnt can always lead to the release of sulfur dioxide. Even let's suppose you're not burning the fossil fuel, even then, the ores will contain various different types of impurities. And those impurities can be sulfates, etc. Because when you mine the products, these kind of materials, mercury, for example, sulfur, for example, they are always a part of that impurity, that is the ore. Okay, so that is where these emissions are present, right? I hope that is understood. Now, furnace oil. Furnace oil is basically one of the cheap products in terms of the entire fractional distillation of the crude that you carry out. It is very cheap. It is a heavy oil out there. Right, so it is used in the ships in certain cases. It is sometimes used in industrial processes as well. It can be used for combustion where high efficiency is not expected out of it. So it is a product of oil refineries? Definitely yes. Some industries use it to generate power? Yes, at a lower efficiency. Its use causes sulfur emissions to the environment. You are again burning fossil fuel, so sulfur emissions to the environment are caused. Now, in all these questions, if you have taken a look at the trend, that is important. Knowing the answers, anybody can help you know the answers. I want you to observe the trend and think about it. What is it that UPSC is trying to ask you? UPSC is trying to ask you, in terms of pollution, the sources of pollution. Now, is it a random source of pollution that UPSC is throwing at you? No. These are the ones which have remained in news. And secondly, it is asking you some of the basic concepts, such as whether carbon dioxide, whether sulfur dioxide, etc. are released or not. So these are not, in nowhere, these are non-doable questions. If you are well versed with the current affairs of the year and a half, you should be in a very good position, right, to answer these kind of questions. So that is the trend I want you to take a look at. Okay. Now, again, observe the same kind of statement, even though this is more of a geography-based question also that you can associate. So here, consider the following statements. Coal ash contains arsenic, lead, and mercury. That is the fly ash that you have. Coal-fired power plants release sulfur dioxide and oxides of nitrogen into the environment. The same trend. What is released? High ash content is observed in Indian coal. Now, in this case, coal ash contains arsenic, lead, and mercury. Absolutely, yes. That is what the fly ash generates. That is where you have that fly ash which contaminates the land, soil, and the water body nearby. That is why you have the government mandate that near the coal-based power plants, the fly ash should be utilized to make those fly ash bricks and then used for pavement purposes, building purposes, and so on. Coal-fired power plants release sulfur dioxide and oxides of nitrogen into the atmosphere. Obviously, yes. Even if you don't know third one, 1 and 2 will give you the correct answer, right? Having said that, high ash content is observed in Indian coal. Yes. The calorific value is not that high, but the ash content is high. That is why, despite having rich quantities of the Gondwana grade coal, that is a bituminous grade coal, India ends up importing coal from countries like Indonesia, South Africa, etc. This was a question which was asked in the mains examination for GS paper 1. So a similar type of question for environment or for the kind of mains exam. Okay. Now, which of the following are the reasons or the factors for exposure to benzene pollution? Automobile exhaust, tobacco smoke, wood burning, using varnished wooden furniture, using products made out of polyurethane. So, basically, all of them will lead to exposure to benzene pollution. Okay, all of the above. Now here, when we talk about these air pollutants, the category of these air pollutants, you have the major air pollutants as formaldehyde, benzene, and toluene. When we talk about benzene, so tobacco smoke, fuel, exhaust from cars, burning plastic, obviously. All these three are carcinogenic. Carcinogenic means they cause cancer. Toluene, basically water insoluble with smell. So in the paints, glues, adhesives, the kind of disinfectants that you spray around, all of them have toluene. Formaldehyde. Now, many of us think that we spray around disinfectants and now we are living in a clean environment. We are inhaling these cancer-causing agents. Then formaldehyde, that is again to be present in the gaseous or the colorless form, where it is found in the varnishes, the kind of turpentines, etc. You will find a lot of formaldehyde to be present. Okay. Now, justify them for all the options. Tobacco exhaust, as in, what do we mean by justify? That why do we have benzene in that case? Automobile exhaust basically has the emission of nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, benzene. Then you have toluene also, which is emitted to some extent. Now, benzene is what is also a part of the volatile organic compounds, VOCs, right? So they readily react with the nitrous oxides, etc., to form ozone very quickly. That is a secondary pollutant. Tobacco smoke, that releases or leads to the emission of heavy contaminants. So you have various different types like arsenic, etc., which are also released, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, all of them are released in the case of tobacco smoke. Wood burning, wood is again a kind of what? Carbon-based compound, organic compound, you burn them, sulfur compounds will be released, nitrogen compounds will be released, carbon dioxide, monoxide will be released, some amount of methane will also be released. Along with that, these volatile organic compounds like benzene, etc., will also be released. Like that, you have the varnished food and furniture. We have talked about it. What do we mean by varnished food and furniture? When you create the polishing of the tables, polishing of the chairs, etc. So the liquid that you use, they use toluene, formaldehyde, and benzene. That is why I have shown you this particular image. This is not simply a colorful representation in the middle of the slide. This is to indicate the same particular concept. Okay, so all of these basically release benzene. Is that now clear? Or do we still have a doubt in that? I hope that is what you meant by justify them for all the options, right? I hope it is clear now. Now, in the context of which of the following are the terms pyrolysis and plasma gasification mentioned? What do we mean when we talk about pyrolysis and plasma gasification? Pyrolysis is what? Combustion in a controlled oxygenated supply. So combustion which can be initiated either due to a slight absence or very limited availability of oxygen. Now what do you do in this? You basically ensure carbon-based compounds, carbon-based waste such as haze, straws, right, crop rejects, etc. They are basically undertaken pyrolysis. Now, when pyrolysis happens, that is when it produces partially burnt products. The compounds are, or the waste is partially burnt. Now, when the compound is partially burnt, that is when it provides you only carbon-based compounds are carried out through the process. So, organic waste, most of the organic waste, not the inorganic waste, that produces charcoal. And that charcoal will still have some amount of energy left within it. And that is where it is used as fuel for industrial purposes. Okay? So this is basically what is used for waste to energy conversion technique. Right? Now consider the following. Which of the above are released into the atmosphere due to the burning of crop or biomass residue? What is released into the atmosphere? So here carbon monoxide, methane, ozone and sulfur dioxide. So here this was slightly controversial again because UPSC published a kind of a different answer, and here it did not talk about primary or secondary pollutants, so that makes the answer justified. So here if you think about it, carbon monoxide, will it be released when you burn any carbon-based compound? Yes. Methane, it is an organic compound. Yes. Sulfur dioxide, plant-based residue. Yes. Right? So these three you are sure about. 1, 2 and 4, no option is there. So you also have the secondary pollutant, that is ozone, because of the nitrogen compounds and the volatile organic compounds which are released due to the burning of the crop residue that produces ozone, which is mostly a secondary contaminant or a secondary pollutant. So in this case, all the four are produced into the atmosphere due to the burning of crops or the biomass. Okay? Now, consider the following statements. Agricultural soil releases nitrogen oxides into the environment. Cattle release ammonia into the environment. The poultry industry releases reactive nitrogen compounds into the environment. Now, this is asking you about the nitrogen cycle which happens. So, when you talk about agricultural soil, there you also have the presence and the prominence of denitrifying bacterium and microbes which are there, isn't it? So they will release nitrogen oxides as a process of, so you have nitrifying microorganisms which carry out nitrogen fixation. You have the denitrifying organisms as well. Cattle release ammonia. So when you talk about the cattle, during their digestive process, they basically carry out enteric fermentation, where the outcome in most of the cases is methane as well as the ammonia-based compounds. So yes and yes. Poultry industry releases again reactive nitrogen compounds. So again, because after all they are also carrying out the digestive process, so they will also end up releasing. Yes, the bloating is caused by these gases out there. So that is where all the three, they are correct. So the correct answer in this case is D. Now, why is there a great concern about microbeads that are released into the environment? Now, after Donald Trump coming into power, microbeads are back in use. Microbeads are what? The very small compounds or the small sized fragments of microplastics out there. That is what you associate with microbeads, isn't it? So they are considered harmful to the marine ecosystems. Yes, they are. Why? Because oftentimes these microbeads, they end up getting trapped in the respiratory system of the marine organisms, and that is when they choke to death. So that is why these microbeads and the plastic pollution in the marine environment, that is what has created the large Pacific garbage patch, and that is why plastic pollution is one of the problems that the world is seeking a solution to. So a straightforward, simple question in this case. So the correct answer is A. Okay. Now, which of the following is or are the possible consequence or consequences of heavy sand mining in riverbeds? Decreased salinity in the river, pollution of groundwater, lowering of water table. Which of these are the consequences of sand mining? So you see, when you carry out sand mining in a particular area, let's suppose there is a river which is draining into the sea. Okay, this is your sea. And on a cross-sectional basis, if you think about it, let's suppose this is the river. This is your presence of water in the river channel. And below it, let's suppose here you have the water table. Now, due to sand mining, what will you do? You will remove and dig out the soil here, isn't it? So after some time, you will come across a situation where the groundwater freely enters the region of the river water. So initially, there will be a surplus flow of water. But over a period of time, the groundwater will get depleted, the water table will go down, right? So that is an ill effect of sand mining. At the same time, when you carry out sand mining, coastal erosion will be much higher. There is nothing to protect the sea from coming inland anymore. As a consequence, the estuaries, the lagoons, they start getting deeper inland. So when you have salty seawater which starts ingressing inland due to coastal erosion, salinity level will go up or will go down. What do you think? Salinity level obviously will go higher up because the seawater is ingressing. So that is why now with that information, if you take a look at the option, decrease salinity of river, no, it can lead to increase in the salinity of river water. Pollution of groundwater, obviously yes, because now you are exposing the groundwater to the outside intervention from the environment. So that will happen. Lowering of the water table, yes, that is basically again one of the outcomes. So in this case, the correct answer is going to be B, that is 2 and 3 only, right? Now, in the context of solving pollution problems, what is or are the advantage or the advantages of the bioremediation technique? It is a technique for cleaning up pollution by enhancing the same biodegradation process that occurs in nature. Bioremediation. What is bioremediation? Bioremediation is where the process of decomposition that is carried out is accelerated, where the contaminants are to be removed by organic process of decomposition, right? So that is bioremediation. So when we talk about bioremediation, it is of various different types. But the basic purpose behind it is removing the contaminants by the process of decomposition. So we have seen what do you need for decomposition? The organic or the different types of organisms which can carry out the decomposition. You need moisture, you need oxygen, and you need warm temperature, right? So bioremediation is of various types. That is bioventing. You have where you provide air into the region where the contaminant is and you allow for the decomposition to happen by the locally found microbes. Then you have bioaugmentation, where in the region of contamination, you provide the specific kind of microbes, unique kind of microbes, for example, oil zapper, oilivorous, in the regions where you have oil contamination. So those kind of specific microbes you apply. Then you have biosparging, where the level of groundwater contamination is reduced by injecting high-pressured oxygen into the region of the groundwater and some of the nutrients which can aid into the growth of the specific microbes to take care of the contaminant. And then you have composting, right? And another form of bioremediation is ex situ form, that is land farming, where you carry out the contaminated soil into a different region altogether. You provide the microbes which will degrade that contamination, and you provide moisture and you expose that contaminated layer of soil from the air as well. Okay, so these are various different types of bioremediation, very, very important for your prelims. So it is a technique for cleaning up pollution by enhancing the same biodegradation process that occurs in nature. Correct. Any contaminant with heavy metals such as cadmium and lead can be readily and completely treated by bioremediation using microorganisms. This is a big no, because here you have multiple of the extreme terms. Any contaminant. Can any contaminant be treated? Obviously not. If let's suppose you have cadmium, lead or any other heavy metal compound, can that be treated completely? No, this is incorrect. Then genetic engineering can be used to create microorganisms specifically designed for bioremediation. Yes, oil zapper being one of them. So the correct answer is going to be C, 1 and 3 only. Now, biological oxygen demand is a standard criterion for what? Biological oxygen demand is basically the amount of oxygen required in order to decompose all the organic waste which is there in the water body. So greater the biological oxygen demand in a water body, that means greater organic pollution is there in the water body, right? So this gives you an idea about the pollution assay in aquatic ecosystems. Similarly, you have what is known as chemical oxygen demand. That is the total amount of oxygen which is required in order to degrade and decompose both organic as well as inorganic pollutants, right? That is chemical oxygen demand. Always understand, chemical oxygen demand will always be greater than biological oxygen demand, because chemical oxygen demand will tackle both the organic and inorganic degradation, whereas biological oxygen demand only for the organic contamination. Okay? Now, then in the cities of our country, which among the following atmospheric gases are normally considered in calculating the value of AQI, air quality index, which is always in news? Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and methane. Now here, a simple understanding of logic is required. So a very simple, straightforward question: how many contaminants or how many different gases are considered for AQI? You have 8 different compounds which are considered. Carbon dioxide is never considered. Carbon monoxide is, but carbon dioxide is not considered. Remove 1. You get the correct answer, 2, 3, and 4. Right? If you take a look at it, these are the various different gases which are considered for calculating AQI. PM10 over a 24-hour period, PM2.5, nitrogen dioxide, ozone, ground level ozone, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, ammonia, and lead. These are the ones which are considered. This year again, this is a probable question. So take a look at these 8 contaminants. Okay. Now, brominated flame retardants are used in many household products like mattresses and upholstery like the curtains, etc. Why is there some concern about the brominated flame retardants? Now, these are some of the compounds which are added, so they are highly resistant to getting degraded in the environment. So they are persistent in terms of being long-lasting pollutant. Correct. They are able to accumulate in humans and animals because they are water insoluble and fat soluble. So they basically embed themselves in the fatty cells of the organisms, and that is where they stay for a longer period of time. right? Sir, on internet it is showing carbon monoxide. My dear, on the slide also it is showing carbon monoxide. In the correct answer, it is also showing carbon monoxide. Where is the doubt in this? Please have some faith in the questions being discussed. We will not give you incorrect answers out there. Okay? Carbon dioxide is not considered in AQI, but carbon monoxide is always considered. Okay? Please understand that. That is what I have been repeating multiple times. Okay, I won't repeat it any further now. Carbon dioxide is not considered because carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It is not considered to be a pollutant. That is the basic understanding in terms of what is a pollutant and what is a greenhouse gas. You can check it on the internet about that as well. I am sure internet will vouch for that. Having said that, when we talk about the brominated flame retardants, so they basically are used in the interior furnishings out there. So they are resistant to degradation in the environment, right? And that is where they are persistent for a long period of time, and they carry out bioaccumulation and biomagnification because, as I was telling you, they are soluble in the fatty cells where they embed themselves, so they are able to move across the food chain and accumulate within the body system as well. So here, both 1 and 2, that is C, that is correct. Okay. Now, there is some concern regarding the nanoparticles of some chemical elements that are used by industry in the manufacture of various products. Why? This again follows the simple principle of bioaccumulation and biomagnification. They can accumulate in the environment and contaminate the water and soil. Yes, they can. They can enter the food chain. Obviously, if they accumulate in the environment, they will have, and they are nanoparticles, so they can easily penetrate and enter the food chain. They can trigger the production of free radicals. What does this mean, free radicals? Basically means these nanoparticles can be reactive in nature. So when they can be reacting with, let's suppose, oxygen, etc., they can always release a free radical of hydrogen, oxygen compound, etc., triggering multiple other reactions as well. So the correct answer in this case is D, 1, 2, and 3. Now, which of the following are some of the important pollutants released by the steel industry? Steel industry is one of the most carbon intensive industry out there, where the amount of pollution caused by the steel industry is very, very high. In order to, in a way, stop this, that is why the world is moving to the production of the green steel. And that is why the European Union has also basically decided to impose from 2026 the carbon border adjustment mechanism, a tax based on the steel import from countries like India, China, etc. So steel industry will lead to the emission of oxides of sulfur because there is burning of coking coal, and coal burning will always lead to a release of nitrogen and sulfur. Carbon monoxide again is produced during the process, and carbon dioxide is a production or an outcome in the blast furnaces as well. So here again, all the four are the pollutants in the steel industry. Now, extended producer responsibility. In India, extended producer responsibility was introduced as an important feature in which of the following? So basically, extended producer responsibility is what? Where the duty or the responsibility of waste management is affixed to the producer, right? So this was first of all introduced in the e-waste management rules 2011, and slowly and steadily, basically, it has been increased. Okay, slowly and steadily, when we talk about the efficacy of EPR, that has been increased both in plastic waste management rules, the amendment which has been carried out in 2023, as well as the e-waste management rules, the amendment which has been carried out in 2022-23. So thereby, you have the tradable EPR certificates which are introduced as per the later amendments, which makes the adherence of EPR, the meeting of the targets, much more practically implementable. Now, which of the following statements are correct about the deposits of methane hydrate? Methane hydrate remains in use owing to the large presence in the region of the Arctic and in the region of the area of South China Sea, because South China Sea has been known to provide lot of various different methane hydrate compounds, right? So methane hydrate appears to be like this, right? So here, these methane hydrates are found across the sea floor. So you have some amount of methane which is released from the vents. And these literally end up solidifying into a kind of a whitish particle. These substances are then extracted from the ocean bottom, and that is when they are then utilized. That is when combustion is carried out for production of energy. Okay, so that is basically the case of methane hydrate. So global warming might trigger release of methane gas from the deposits. Evaporation of water can happen, and then that methane gas can be released. Large deposits of methane hydrate are found in Arctic tundra and under the sea floor. This is also going to be correct. Methane in the atmosphere gets oxidized to carbon dioxide after a decade or two. This is about the short-lived cycle of methane as a pollutant. Methane as a pollutant in the atmosphere dissipates very quickly, where it reacts with the hydroxide ions which are there to produce vapor and carbon dioxide. That is why methane, despite the fact that it has greater potential of global warming as compared to carbon dioxide, is still not considered a greater amount of greenhouse gas or greenhouse potential as compared to carbon dioxide, because of the short-lived cycle that methane has. So it gets oxidized to carbon dioxide after a decade or two. That is correct. So here the correct answer is going to be 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, I hope this is understood. I hope there is no doubt associated with this. Right. Yes, global warming potential of per molecule of methane, that is more. What is known as the positive forcing. Per molecule, methane has got greater potential. Right. In 72. Right. So in this case, yes, you guys are correct. I think it was Sudarshan also who had asked this. Sudarshan, you had asked this, right? And Gullyboy, you have a question. Will global warming might directly trigger? Global warming will lead to evaporation of water, and that can lead to the exposure of methane hydrates, where they can be reactive and they can release that. Okay. Now, Sudarshan, you had a question that carbon dioxide is not considered a pollutant. Still, why have we considered D as the answer? Fair enough. That is owing to the fact that looking at the options, that was the most apt solution out there. Again, had the option been 1, 2, and 3, that would have been the correct answer in this case. So that is where UPSC will always in the first page itself tell you most appropriate answer you have to find. This is again where a lot of controversy was raised that year, a lot of requests was raised to cancel the question, but UPSC came up with the answer key telling D as the answer. So we consider D as the correct answer. Okay, had there been a 1, 2, and 3 as an option, Sudarshan, that would have been the correct answer. Clear? I hope the doubt is resolved. Okay. Most appropriate answer out of the options given. There you should not basically not mark an option because it is not correct. So same I told you about the ozone one as well. Because if you think about the burning of stubble or the burning of plant residue, directly ozone will never be released. But then the logic, if you apply that, okay, maybe nitrous oxide and volatile organic compound, they will end up being produced. So ozone also eventual outcome is there. That is how you reach the answer. But that is the most appropriate answer out there, isn't it? Now, the third point, methane in atmosphere gets oxidized to carbon dioxide after a decade or two. So that is the atmospheric methane that reacts with basically hydroxide ions which are out there. This produces CO2 plus vapor. Okay? Understood? That is the case where it dissipates itself. Methane dissipates itself automatically in the atmosphere. Okay? Now we come to the questions, some of the questions dealing with the portion of climate change. These are straightforward, direct questions. Which one of the following best describes the term greenwashing? What is greenwashing? So, greenwashing is a concept which is used by the private organizations, by the corporates, in order to have a kind of a fake claim of their environmentally sensitive practices. Right? So conveying a false impression that a company's products are eco-friendly and environmentally sound. That is greenwashing. Where let's suppose you communicate that, let's suppose this is the product that I am manufacturing, this is environmentally sound. But in reality, it might not be the case. So that is the answer of greenwashing. However, this year, you have had various different types of greenwashing which has been in news. So what is green lighting? That is minutest of the sustainability effort that you have put in. You have highlighted that look how I am changing the world. That is green lighting, to shift the attention away. Green hushing, where whatever environmental activities you are doing, you keep it under the wraps. Because if you announce it out loud, there might be scrutiny, you might get exposed. Green rinsing, you change the environmental targets that you have set. Initial part of the year, you say, I will carry out restoration of 100 acres of wasteland. Eventually, you say 5 acres, and I have met the target. So you are basically changing the sustainability goals. Green shifting, where basically you shift the blame on consumers. So let's suppose you are consuming the Coca-Cola or Pepsi from the plastic bottle. Now, Coca-Cola, to shift the blame on you, will simply say, basically, to dispose the waste carefully, or will draw the triangle of reduce, reuse, recycle. So now the waste problem is on you, not on them. That is green shifting. Green crowding, where you as an organization, you are hiding behind the larger sector that everybody is polluting. Nobody is going to point out myself, right? And green labeling, false eco-friendly labels which are put forward. So these are basically the types of greenwashing which becomes important for the prelims this year as well. Okay? Now, here, in the context of which of the following do some scientists suggest the use of cirrus cloud thinning technique and the injection of sulfate aerosol in the stratosphere? Now, both of this, that is cirrus cloud thinning as well as sulfate aerosol, they come into the part of what is referred to as geoengineering. Geoengineering is basically the artificial way in which you carry out the cooling mechanism. You ensure that cooling happens. So what is done? Now, we have discussed in the portion of geography PYQs as well that when you have cirrus clouds, the cirrus clouds will trap the long wave terrestrial radiation and re-radiate it back to the Earth's surface. That is where the Earth keeps on getting heated up. So what is done is that this cloud is thinned out. When you thin out this cloud, then this will escape. So the heating will not happen, heat will escape. Second is sulfate aerosols. Sulfate aerosols, they are whitish in nature, so they will re-radiate back the solar rays due to the factor of having a very high albedo. Reflectiveness is very high, so they will again provide cooling to the ground surface. So here in this case, where is this important? Reducing global warming. Okay? Now, after that, which of the following statements best describes carbon fertilization? This is something we have discussed in the initial part of the session. Carbon fertilization is basically when you have abundance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, that large amount of carbon dioxide then allows for greater rate of photosynthesis, greater organic production, and hence a faster growth of plants as well. So increased plant growth due to increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The planet has experienced this previously as well before the advent of the humans. That is roughly around 90 to 95 million years ago, when you had a massive spate of volcanism across the planet. At that point of time, the carbon dioxide concentration rose exponentially. As a consequence of that, you basically had in the following few million years, plant growth, particularly in the tropics, that increased. That brought about speciation of many different types of species in the region of the tropics. Okay? Now, in the context of mitigating the impending global warming due to anthropogenic emission of CO2, which of the following can be the potential site for carbon sequestration? Abandoned and uneconomic coal seams, depleted oil and gas reserves, subterranean deep saline formations. This is basically a question asking you that if I have to remove carbon dioxide in order to reduce global warming, where can I store that carbon dioxide? Abandoned and uneconomic coal seams? Definitely yes. Even that will end up producing a carbon-rich gas, which can also be utilized as a fuel, by the way. Depleted oil and gas reserve? Yes. That carbonation will provide for easier extraction of oil and gas as well. Subterranean deep saline formations, there again in the deeper depths of the ground, you can capture the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in the depth, and that will provide for definite cooling. So in this case, the answer is D, 1, 2, and 3. Now, a simple straightforward question. The term INDC, intended nationally determined contribution, sometimes seen in the news in the context of what? Very much a part of current affairs. It was asked in 2016 throughout 2015. This was in discussion. So, pledges made by the European countries to rehabilitate refugees from war-affected Middle East. Absolutely not. Plan of action outlined by the countries of the world to combat climate change. Yes. INDCs are an outcome of what? INDCs are an outcome of the Paris Agreement, isn't it? Where each country has to declare its own INDC after how much time? This has to be done every 5 years. And these NDCs have to improve progressively from one declaration to the other declaration. And in the meanwhile, you also have the provision of global stocktake mechanism, where the countries have to open themselves to monitoring and examination every 5 years. Correct. Beautiful. So the correct answer in this case is B. Now, then coming to certain questions asked associated with species. So observe where the majority of the questions are coming from. Pollution, ecosystem, climate change, right? Rather than learning national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, concentrate on these areas, your overall marks will increase. But what do we do as candidates? Because in these we have to apply mind, and we don't like applying mind. We like to ratify. So let's ratify all the national parks. Let's ratify the critically endangered species. Maybe I will be able to get one question correct. So target the larger aspect. Okay. Consider the following statements. Lions do not have a particular breeding season. That is correct. They do not have a breeding season. They basically have that kind of provision year long. So that is correct. Unlike most other big cats, cheetahs, they do not roar. So they don't have a large associated roar when you talk about the cheetahs. So they are unique in that category, which is again correct. Unlike male lions, male leopards do not proclaim their territory by scent marking. This is incorrect. Leopard population, that basically carries out, just like all the other feline species as well, that does the scent marking, right? And that is done by cheetahs as well, which we have discussed earlier in terms of the problems faced in the cheetah reintroduction program. So the scent marking was one of them. In the case of leopard population as well, that scent marking is important to mark the territorial reach of a particular leopard. So here you have 3 which is incorrect. So automatically the correct answer is 1 and 2 only. Okay. Now, the organisms cicada, froghopper and pond skater are birds, fish, insects or reptiles. If we have never heard about these particular species, don't attempt the question. If we have heard about the species, this is what a froghopper looks like. This is what a cicada looks like. So they belong to the category of what? They belong to the category of insects. Okay, so they are not reptiles, they are not fish or birds, they are basically insects. Okay, again factual, so you can ignore these factual questions. Consider the following pairs: the country and the animal found in the natural habitat of that country. Brazil, Indri. Now what is Indri, by the way? We'll take a look at it. Indonesia, elk, and Madagascar, bonobo. Now when you talk about Indri, this is the species which is slightly like a lemur, and it is what is known as the Indri. It is not very big, right? Now this is to be found endemically in the region of Madagascar. Right, it is in the region of Madagascar, and it is again critically endangered. Okay, then elk is to be found in colder areas and in the region of the lowlands of Northern America and northeastern part of Asia. That is where you will find the elk population. And then you have the bonobos. Bonobos are to be found in the region of the Congo River Basin. Congo Basin. That is in the rainforest around the Congo. Okay, so that is basically where these species are to be found. Again, I would suggest those of you appearing for the examination next year, do watch the various docuseries associated with environment. You will be able to get these species-based questions correct. Almost more than 75% efficiency is what you will retain. Those of you appearing for this year, you don't have time to take a look into just the PYQs and the species in news. That is what you should have as an approach. Brazil, Indri, no. Indri found in Madagascar. Indonesia, elk, no. Northern America and Northeastern Asia. Madagascar, bonobo, no. In the region of Congo. So here the correct answer is D, that is none. Okay. Now, which one of the following shows a unique relationship with an insect that has co-evolved with it, and that is the only insect that can pollinate this tree? Fig, maua, sandalwood, or silk cotton. Now this is about the fig wasp that you have, isn't it? Where basically if you observe the cycle, that is where the wasp, the pollen-laden, I have indicated this entire cycle here, the pollen-laden female wasp that enters the unripe fig, and that is where it will lay the eggs, and that is how eventually the entire germination happens, and you have the fig which is given out, right? So this is basically in the life cycle of what is referred to as a fig wasp. Okay, that is what is a fig wasp. So here the correct answer is going to be fig. Okay, yes, direct NCERT reference is this. Consider the following: butterflies, fish, and frog. How many of the above have poisonous species among them? Butterflies, fish, and frogs. In fact, all of them will have the presence of poisonous species amongst them, right? So a straightforward question. So here, all of them will have the poisonous species. Consider the following: cashew, papaya, red sanders. How many of the above trees are actually native to India? Only one, only two, all the three, or none? So when we talk about cashew, Is it native to India? No. Cashew is native to which region? South American region, right? In the region around Brazil. Papaya. Papaya is native to the southern Mexico and the portion of Central America, not in India. Red sanders is the only one that you find. Where will you find red sanders? In the Sheshchalam region, in the region of Andhra Pradesh, Eastern Ghats. That is where you will find the presence of red sanders. So that is basically where you have the correct answer is A. How many questions come from environment and ecology? See, Pooja, there are many such questions which can be thought to be geography or environment. But on an average, you get around 14 to 15 questions every year from these areas. Out of that, if your basics are okay and if you have done some portion of current affairs, you can easily aim around 10 to 11 of them to be correct. Let's assume 3 to 4 are absolutely factual that you have to ignore. And that is a very good average. 11 out of 15 is a very good average in terms of environment ecology, right? Now, this again was a very factual question. Consider the following: carabid beetles, centipedes, flies, termites, and wasps. Parasitoid species are found in which and how many above kind of organisms? That is, in the above, how many of them will have the parasites which can develop amongst them? Now, beetles and centipedes don't have those parasitoids which develop. So obviously these two won't be there. Not obviously, this is very, very factual. But when it comes to flies, termites, and wasps, they have the development of parasites which can impact them and their growth. Again, this kind of a factual question, if you don't know, if you have not come across it anywhere, please don't attempt. Please don't target a negative marks. So here the correct answer is going to be B, that is only 3. Okay. Now, this is about marsupials. Are we aware what marsupials are? Kangaroo, for example, is a marsupial. Consider the following statements. Marsupials are not naturally found in India. Marsupials can thrive only in montane grasslands with no predators. So marsupials are not naturally found in India. Correct. You have the marsupial species in the region of Australia. Some subvarieties also in southern Africa. So this is correct. Second, can thrive only in montane grasslands? Obviously not. In the scrubland, tropical grassland, everywhere they can thrive. So 2 is basically incorrect. So here one option fits that bill, and that is statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is incorrect. Now, consider the following fauna: lion-tailed macaque, Malabar civet, and sambar deer. How many of the above are generally nocturnal or most active after sunset? Now, lion-tailed macaque. Generally, when you have these arboreal species, it is a kind of a species of the monkeys. So when you have these arboreal species, most of them, they are diurnal. That is active during the day. They are not nocturnal. Okay. So lion-tailed macaque is not nocturnal. Malabar civet, is it nocturnal? Yes. It is also always in news. It is critically endangered. Right. This is a Malabar civet. Very difficult to catch hold of. Right. So basically it is used for medicinal properties and for perfumery as well. So generally found in hill slopes of evergreen forest, lowland forest, in the region of Western Ghats is where you will find them. Then you have the sambar deer. Now sambar deer is considered to be what is crepuscular. What do we mean by the term crepuscular? You have diurnal, means active during the day. Nocturnal means active during the night. You also have crepuscular. Crepuscular basically means during dawn and dusk. And sometimes that eventually moves into the night as well. Yes. So this will also be correct. So here, sambar deer being crepuscular, that also is generally active or most active after sunset. After all, the dusk or the twilight comes after sunset. So that is where two of them are correct in this particular case. This is Malabar civet. This year again Malabar civet has been in news. Where are they found? What is their IUCN status is something to be known. So found in endemic to Western Ghats. So are they found in various areas? No, endemism. They are basically found in that region itself. Dawn dusk. Dawn is basically prior to sunlight. When the sunrise happens, you still have some light. That is dawn. Dusk is when the sun sets, but still you have some light in the evening. That is dusk. Okay. Now, consider the following statement. Some mushrooms have medicinal properties. Yes. Some mushrooms have psychoactive properties. Yes, they are used as for various different psychotropic substances as well. Some mushrooms have insecticidal properties. That means they can be poisonous and they can damage the insects as well. Some mushrooms have bioluminescent properties. Yes, all of these basically are present in the case of the mushroom. After all, they are the fungal species and they have a large variety and a large species diversity as well. So here the answer is D, that is all four. Okay. Now, consider the following statements regarding the Indian squirrels. When we talk about Indian squirrels, they build nest by making burrows in the ground. Has any one of us seen a squirrel digging burrows in the ground? No, they don't. Incorrect. They basically have slightly higher height where they tend to build their nest. They store their food materials like nuts and seeds into the ground, hidden against the predators and the competitors. This is correct. And they are omnivorous. This is again correct. So which of this, how many of the above statements are correct? So the correct answer in this case is going to be B, that is only 2. Okay. Now, which one of the following makes a tool with a stick to scrape insects from a hole in a tree or a log of wood? Fishing cat cannot do that, obviously, doesn't have an opposable thumb. Orangutan, otter. Now sea otter, obviously again, is not the answer. The correct answer in this case is going to be B, that is orangutan. Orangutan is one of those smarter species which takes the thinner sticks, and that is when it fishes out the insects and the ants from the trees. Okay. Now, with reference to Gucci, sometimes mentioned in the news, consider the following statements. What is a Gucci? Not the brand. This is what the Gucci refers to. So here, when we talk about Gucci, this is what? This is a mushroom, a fungus. Correct. It grows in some Himalayan forest area. Absolutely yes. In the temperate conifer region. Coniferous region. Very, very costly. 500 grams can be fetched at around roughly 18,000 rupees. Very difficult to collect. So the individuals, they go deep into the forest for a long period of time, and that is when they accumulate these in a very painstaking manner over a long period of time, and that is when they have some amount of material that they can sell in the market. It is highly nutritious to the body in terms of vitamin D, vitamin B12, etc., which it tends to provide. That is why in large demand. It grows in some Himalayan forest area. Yes. It is commercially cultivated in the Himalayan foothills of northeastern India. Commercial cultivation of Gucci is still not done, but this statement has got multiple errors. Here, it is not to be found in northeastern India. It is to be found only in the region around Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal. That is where it is to be found, not in the northeastern part. So here 1 and 2, that becomes your correct answer. Okay? That is true, Monu. Actual and the brand both are very expensive. Now, Which of the following is not a bird? Golden mahseer, Indian nightjar, spoonbill, and white ibis. Now, golden mahseer. This basically forms the state fish of many states in our country. This golden mahseer, this is a fish species, right? So here listed as endangered in IUCN. Find out it is the state fish of which of the states out there. You have various varieties of mahseer which forms the state fish in Madhya Pradesh also, Nagaland also, and so on. But it forms the state fish, I'll give you the hint, of the region of Jammu and Kashmir, of the region of Arunachal Pradesh. The remaining states, find it out, let me know in the comments. So here golden mahseer, which tends to remain in news for most of the times, that is not a bird, it is a fish species. Okay? Now, which of the following is a filter feeder? What is a filter feeder? A filter feeder is an organism, generally the marine organisms are referred to as the filter feeders, where the organic precipitates which keep on dropping from in the oceanic water, they base that as the source of consumption of food and nutrition. So which of them is a filter feeder? So here the correct answer is going to be oyster. Because if you think about all of the other ones, they basically are the consumers who consume either when you talk about octopus, they also consume the various different nutrients out there. Catfish and pelican, they have also a food chain that they are dependent upon. It is the oyster which is dependent upon the fallen materials in the ocean. Okay? Now, with reference to Indian elephants, consider the following statements. The leader of an elephant group is a female. Correct. The maximum gestation period can be 22 months. Gestation period, the time taken to give birth. Now let's suppose you don't know about this. Still, could we be able to solve this? We know that one is correct. So either it will be A or it will be D. Right? Why I'm telling you this is because after 2020, I have seen a lot of candidates rectifying the gestation period of all the different organisms. Not at all required. Apply 1 ounce of logic there. Now, an elephant can normally go on calving till the age of 40 years only. Absolute term. Right? A red flag. Now, calving means before adulthood. The elephants, they reach adulthood again around 16 to 18. So it is not till the age of 40 that they are considered a calf. So this again, we know that it is incorrect. 3 is eliminated. Among the states in India, the highest elephant population is in Kerala. Is it correct? No. The highest elephant population is basically in Karnataka, not in Kerala. Incorrect. So the correct answer is 1 and 2 only. Okay? Now, consider the following statement. Some species of turtles are herbivores. Correct. They are dependent on some amount of seagrass. And also the case of planktonic products. Some species of fish are herbivore. Correct. Some species of marine mammals, they are herbivores. Example, dugong. Dugong is a marine mammal which is a herbivore, which is found in the coastal areas. Some species of snakes are viviparous. That is, they give birth to the live ones. This is also correct. Right? For example, the boa constrictor, the green anaconda that you have. These are the snakes which don't lay eggs. They give birth to the live ones in itself. Right? So here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of them are correct. Consider the following statements. Asiatic lions are naturally found in India only. As of now, this is correct. And in India, presently found naturally only in the region of Gujarat. At one point of time, their population was spread over to central and peninsular India as well, but now restricted only in the ranges of Gujarat. Double-humped camels are naturally found in India only. Incorrect. They are to be present all from the region around Mongolia, from the Gobi Desert, all the way till the region of the Indian subcontinent. So 2 is incorrect. One-horned rhino are naturally found in India only. No. Where else can we find one-horned rhino? In the region around Nepal. Nepal also has got the presence of one-horned rhinos, right? And even in Bhutan, you will find them. So here, the correct answer is going to be A, that is 1 only. Okay? Now, this was a question which was very, very long, elaborative, but in the terms of its difficulty, it was easy. That is, the term sixth mass extinction or sixth extinction is often mentioned in the news in the context of the discussion of what? Now, sixth mass extinction, basically, when we talk about it, the planet has gone through 5 different phases of mass extinction caused due to climate change, volcanic eruption, continental drift, asteroid impact in the case of dinosaurs, etc. Presently, the human-based or the anthropogenic caused extinction is underway, where a lot of species that we know of have gone extinct due to human action, such as destruction of habitat, degradation of the ecosystem, hunting, killing, poaching, destruction of the food chain, etc. So that has been referred to as the sixth mass extinction. So that is mankind's overexploitation or misuse of natural resource, fragmentation or loss of natural habitats, destruction of ecosystems, pollution, and global climate change. That is what is leading to a sixth mass extinction. Okay? Now, if you want to see gharials in their natural habitat, which one of the following is the best place to visit? Bhitarkanika, Chambal, Pulicat, and Deepur Beel. Which is the natural or the region to visit if you want to see gharials? Simple answer, across the Chambal river system, you have that. However, previously they were also to be found across the Mahanadi and the Brahmaputra river system, where presently they are not to be found. Okay, presently the population is non-existent. Okay, however, the government of Assam and the government of Odisha are trying for gharial reintroduction programs in those areas as well. Now, in which of the following regions of India are you most likely to come across the great Indian hornbill in its natural habitat? You have to select the answer from the options. Sand deserts of northwestern India. Will you find the great Indian hornbill there? No. Higher Himalayas of Jammu and Kashmir? No. Salt marshes of western Gujarat? No. Western Ghats? Yes. Other than Western Ghats, which is the other area where you can find the hornbill? Not olive red, it is Bhitarkanika, olive ridley, and saltwater crocodiles. That is what Bhitarkanika is famous for. In the region around Nagaland. Very good. So it is also to be found in the region around Nagaland. And in the, so they are found in 2 of the biodiversity hotspots in India. One is the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot in the east. Other is the Western Ghats and Sri Lanka biodiversity hotspot in the southwest region of India. Okay. If Northeast was mentioned, you will never have the question where both Northeast and Western Ghats will be mentioned, right? And if UPSC does such a kind of a mistake, which UPSC doesn't do, if UPSC commits such kind of a mistake, both of them can be correct, right? Now, which one of the following is the national aquatic animal of India? I assume that none amongst us will face a problem in this. It is basically the Gangetic dolphin. That is the national aquatic animal of India, right? Now, Gangetic dolphin, again, this year also was in news. However, there was another question associated with Gangetic dolphin. Other than poaching, what are the possible reasons for the decline in the population of Ganga river dolphin? Construction of dams and barrages on rivers, increase in the population of crocodiles in the rivers, getting trapped in fishing nets accidentally, What is a bycatch? Use of synthetic fertilizers and their agricultural chemicals in crop fields in the vicinity of rivers. Why is it that the population of dolphins is decreasing? Here, the catch is basically increase in population of crocodiles. It is not leading to the decline in population of dolphins because they are not the part of the same food chain, right? So at max they are competitors, but again dolphins, they are not across the same areas in terms of competition to that extent. So that is your crux in this portion. So construction of dams and barrages has impacted the ecological flow, the e-flow of the river, which has impacted the natural movement of the dolphins and also the degradation of the habitat. Getting trapped in the fishing nets in many of the river systems, in many of the regions, that has reduced the population and also the agricultural chemicals. So 1, 3 and 4 is the correct answer. Now, when we talk about the dolphins, in order to ensure that the protection of dolphins happen, you have the Project Dolphin, which has been run by the government. Now, Project Dolphin, by the way, caters to both riverine and saline water dolphins. Okay. In India, you have a dolphin protected area, which is situated in which state? In Bihar, right? Okay, good. Around the region of Bhagalpur in Bihar, that is where you have the Vikramshila Dolphin Sanctuary, which is there. Valmiki is the tiger reserve in the northwestern part of Bihar. Vikramshila Dolphin Sanctuary is present in the eastern, southeastern part of Bihar. Why is 2 incorrect? How can the increase in population of crocodile reduce the number of dolphins? Think about it. Is it the case that the crocodiles will consume the dolphins? No, that is never the case, right? Is it the case that because the crocodiles, the dolphins don't have enough food? No, that is also not the case because the kind of food that they consume, that also varies. Okay? Many of the times, Khurshid, they die by the time that they are caught. And the fishermen, they tend to re-release it, but in the process, they die. Okay. With reference to dugong, a mammal found in India, which of the following statements is or are correct? It is a herbivorous marine mammal. It is found along the entire coast of India. It is given legal protection under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Act 1972. So it is a herbivore marine mammal? Yes. It is found along the entire coast of India. No. It is to be found across the stretches around Pok Strait, across the region of Great Nicobar. So here, incorrect. Yes, the Gulf of Mannar. It is given legal protection under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Yes. So here the correct answer is going to be C, that is 1 and 3 only. Okay. Now, if you walk through the countryside, you are likely to see some birds stalking alongside the cattle to seize the insects disturbed by their movement through grasses. Again, a very randomized factual question, but talks about a basic population interaction mechanism, what is referred to as commensalism, where one species benefits, the other species is unimpacted, right? Which one of the following is or are such bird or birds? Painted stork. Painted stork, if you think about it, they are pretty large. They don't consume small insects, right? They will consume some of the small fishes out there. They will never consume the insects. It is talking about they walk alongside the cattle to seize the insect. So as the cattle moves across the grasses, its weight basically compresses the various holes and cracks. That is when the insects, they come out. And these birds are there to feed upon those insects. Common myna, absolutely yes. Mynas, they consume a lot of these insects. Black-necked crane. A crane with such a large beak, if you think about it, is it a consumer of insects? No. Again, fish species are what are consumed. So in this case, the answer is basically B, that is 2 only. Okay. Now, this is basically a population interaction. Now, you have various population interactions: predation, competition, then you have parasitism, mutualism, commensalism, and amensalism. Invasive alien species always indicate the interaction of amensalism. Commensalism is followed by, for example, barnacles and whales. For example, the suckerfish and the shark, the egrets and the cattle, the myna and the cattle. All of them, they follow the principle of commensalism. Okay? Now, consider the following animals: sea cow, seahorse, sea lion. Which of the above is or are mammals? Sea cow, definitely yes. The dugong we have seen with the example. Seahorse, we have talked about it earlier in the session. They are a species or a kind of a speciation of the genus fish, right? Sea lion is also a mammal. So here, 1 and 3 is the correct answer. Okay? The term M stripes is sometimes seen in news in the context of. Now, M stripes is a kind of a methodology which is used in order to ensure that the tiger census, the tiger population, is adequately accounted for. So it is in practice in the region of tiger reserves. Beautiful. So here, captive breeding of wild fauna? No. Maintenance of tiger reserves? Yes. So that is where M stripes has been used for some time in order to ensure a reliable, at the same time safe, tiger census, tiger protection programs, tiger tracking programs, and so on. In India, if a species of tortoise is declared protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, what does it imply? If a species is listed under Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act, what does it imply? It enjoys the same level of protection as a tiger. Yes, after all, tiger is also listed in Schedule 1. It no longer exists in the wild. A few individuals are under captive protection and now it is impossible to prevent its extinction. Absolutely no. It is endemic to a particular region in India. Both B and C are correct now. Right? However, the Wildlife Protection Act has now been amended. Now, how many different types or how many different schedules are there in Wildlife Protection Act 1972? You have 4 schedules. Earlier, you had 6 schedules. That has been reduced to 4. Right? Now, that amendment, keeping in mind the recommendations of CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Now coming to the last subpart, that is some of the international organizations, some of the questions dealing with that. Now, consider the following statements. In India, the Biodiversity Management Committee are key to the realization of the objective of Nagoya Protocol. Nagoya Protocol is a part of which convention? Nagoya Protocol is a part of Convention on Biological Diversity. It has got 2 protocols. One is Cartagena Protocol, which is for sustainable use of biodiversity and its products, living modified organisms, right? Which requires a biosafety clearinghouse. And then you have the Nagoya Protocol for fair and equitable sharing of benefits and access amongst the local population. Now, as per the requirement of the CBD, eventually to fulfill that, India passed in 2002, the Biodiversity Act was passed by India. Now, under the Biodiversity Act, you basically had the National Biodiversity Authority, the state biodiversity boards, and at the district level, the Biodiversity Management Committee. All right? So in India, the Biodiversity Management Committee are key to the realization of the objective of the Nagoya Protocol for fair and equitable access and benefit sharing. Correct. The Biodiversity Management Committees have important functions in determining access and benefit sharing, including the power to levy collection fees on the access of biological resources within the jurisdiction so that the local indigenous community can benefit out of it. So look at both the statements. Both the statements are almost similar, isn't it? What UPSC is trying to check out of you as a candidate is whether you are aware that Nagoya Protocol is for access and benefit sharing. Okay, that is what you have to be careful for. So just the basic idea of the conventions also oftentimes. So I think most of you would have seen the conventions and protocol video, the comprehensive video that we have done. Just revise that video again before the exam as many times as possible. That will ensure all these questions you mark it correct. So in this case, the correct answer is going to be C, that is both 1 and 2. Okay. Now, consider the following statements. Under Ramsar Convention, it is mandatory on the part of the government of India to protect and conserve all the wetlands in the territory of India. Is that true? No. Because all the wetlands within the territory of India, they don't come under Ramsar sites, right? So how can the Ramsar Convention dictate for all of that conservation? Incorrect. Remove 1 wherever it is given. The Wetland Rules 2010 were framed by the government of India based on the recommendation of the Ramsar Convention. They were framed for the conservation of the wetlands in India, but they were not framed based on the recommendation given by the Ramsar Convention. Ramsar Convention does not give recommendations to the states or the nations that frame this kind of a law. That is not the work of the convention. Okay? Incorrect. The Wetland Rules 2010, which talks about conservation of wetlands, also encompass the draining area or the catchment region of the wetlands as determined by the authority. Definitely, yes. How can you conserve a wetland if you don't take care of the catchment area? Otherwise, the pollutants will keep on coming into that wetland or the ecological flow will not be maintained. So the correct answer in this case is C, that is 3 only. Here, you will find many of the logical questions out there, easy to solve. Consider the following statements in respect of traffic, trade-related analysis of flora and fauna in commerce. Traffic is a bureau under the United Nations Environment Program. No. Traffic, in fact, is an organization, a body which has been created by the joint collaborative effort of 2 bodies. Which are they? IUCN and WWF. Not UNEP. Then, the mission of traffic is to basically ensure that trade in wild plants and animals is not a threat for the conservation of nature. That is what they do, to understand the poaching and the smuggling activities and to understand the pattern and the trend and wherever possible to stop that as well. This is correct. Correct answer being 2 only. Okay. WWF and IUCN, not or, both of them are involved in formation of traffic. Okay. Now, which of the following statements is or are correct? Proper design and effective implementation of REDD+. REDD+ is reduction of emission due to degradation and deforestation. So, REDD+ program can significantly contribute to protection of biodiversity. Yes, if you remove or if you prevent deforestation and degradation of forest, biodiversity can be protected. Resilience of forest ecosystem. Definitely yes. IUCN and UNESCO is different. Absolutely yes. UNESCO is a part of the UN. IUCN is another independent body which was created around 1948. Very, very different. Poverty reduction. Can poverty reduction be a goal for the REDD+? Yes. Because if you prevent the deforestation and degradation of the forest will provide ecosystem services to the indigenous forest dwelling community, and their overall economic requirements can be fulfilled, reducing the level of poverty in them. So this is 1, 2, and 3, all of them are correct. That is this basically RED Plus was again an implementation born out of the Conference of Parties to the Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was held in Warsaw, Poland. That is where it was the outcome of. Now, what is or are the importances of UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification? See, RED, earlier you had RED program, Tarun. RED Plus brought in some amount of economic incentivization to the developing nations and underdeveloped nations, and involvement of indigenous local community in the prevention of deforestation and forest degradation. That is where India and the other countries of global south, they were very vociferous that if you want to really prevent the degradation of forest, you have to incentivize the local community, and RED Plus was born out of it. Okay. Now, UNCCD, this was an outcome of the Rio Summit or the Earth Summit 1992. So it aims to promote effective action through innovative national programs and supportive international partnership. Yes, appears to be a kind of a faultless statement. Nothing wrong in that. It has special or particular focus on South Asia and North Africa regions, and its secretariat facilitates the major portion of financial resources to these regions. No, that is not the case. It doesn't have a separate or major amount of finance going to South Asia and North Africa. It basically is devoted to the entirety of the world. Okay. Now, it is committed to a bottoms-up approach, encouraging the participation of local people in combating desertification. Yes, correct. So in this case, which is the correct answer? C, 1 and 3 only. Okay, I think it would be easily doable. Consider the following pairs. Terms sometimes seen in the news, their origin. Annex 1 countries. Annex 1 countries, the classification as Annex 1, non-Annex 1 countries is done as a consequence of the Kyoto Protocol, not the Cartagena Protocol. Incorrect. Certified emission reduction. Certified emission reduction is the credit which is given as a consequence of the market mechanism again of Kyoto. Now, certified emission reduction is basically a consequence of JI or CDM. So, CER is basically the credit that you get for CDM, Clean Development Mechanism. We have covered these in the previous video of the conventions and protocols in greater detail. So any doubt in that, you can refer to those videos as well. Now, Cartagena and Nagoya, both of them incorrectly matched. Both of them are a part of CBD, right? Clean Development Mechanism, a part of Kyoto Protocol. Yes. So in this case, the correct answer is going to be C, that is 3 only. Okay. Now, with reference to Agenda 21, sometimes seen in the news, consider the following statements. It is a global action plan for sustainable development. Yes, Agenda 21 is amongst the 3 documents which were famously released during the Rio Summit 1992. So as a consequence of Rio Summit 1992, you had 3 documents and 3 conventions. The 3 conventions were Framework Convention on Climate Change, Convention on Biological Diversity, Convention to Combat Desertification. 3 documents, the Rio Declaration, the Forest Principle, and Agenda 21. So Global Action Plan for Sustainable Development, yes. Originated in the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg in 2002. Incorrect. The correct answer in this case is going to be A, 1 only. Now, what is the Rio Plus 20 conference often mentioned in the news about? Commemorating 20 years of Rio conference, so it would be held in 2012. Right? It is the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. It is a ministerial meeting of the World Trade Organization. It is a conference of the IPCC. It is a conference of the member countries of CBD. So Rio Plus 20 is associated with which of these? Do let me know. What do you think? Rio Plus 20 is basically a conference associated with the Sustainable Development Program. Why? Because by 2015, you basically had the end of the Millennium Development Goals which were to happen. And that is when in 2012, to commemorate 20 years of Rio Conference, you had the coming together of the countries and the parties, and they basically talked about the important pillars for sustainable development. Sustainable development goals were not decided, but the pillars for sustainable development was decided. And that was prosperity, that is economic growth, social equality, lack of discrimination. These were thought to be the basic pillars whereby you could have the movement, right? Now, no, CBD has got a different COP or Conference of Parties altogether. Rio Plus 20 was basically, Rio Plus 20 is not a Conference of Party of either Framework Convention on Climate Change or the Convention on Biological Diversity or the Convention to Combat Desertification. You had Rio Plus 10, which was held in Johannesburg 2002. Right? Rio Plus 20 was held 20 years later. This is basically to commemorate the Rio Conference and the outcome of the Earth Summit. Okay? I hope that is clear. With reference to an organization known as BirdLife International, which of the following statements is or are correct? It is a global partnership of conservation organizations. The concept of biodiversity hotspots originated from this organization. It identifies the sites known or referred to as important bird and biodiversity areas. BirdLife International. So BirdLife International, it is basically a global partnership of conservation organizations. It is true. The concept of biodiversity hotspots originated from this organization. BirdLife International involved in biodiversity hotspot? Absolutely incorrect. All right. Now, it identifies the sites known or referred to as important bird and biodiversity areas. This is correct. In fact, BirdLife International is also one of the partner organizations of the Ramsar Convention, because Ramsar Convention also talks about preservation and conservation of the waterfowl species, which are the birds. So bird conservation is important there. So the correct answer in this case is going to be 1 and 3 only. Okay. Now, yes, correct, Tarun. Which one of the following is associated with the issue of control and phasing out of the use of ODS, ozone depleting substances? Which of them are associated with ozone depleting substances? Bretton Woods Conference that led to the IMF and the World Bank immediately after the Second World War. Incorrect. Montreal Protocol. Straightforward, simple answer. But which was a convention which led to the Montreal Protocol being arrived at in 1987? Montreal Protocol is associated with which convention? Let me know. Very good, Manikandan. It is the Vienna Convention. Vienna Convention is associated. Vienna Convention was held in 1985. That is what was followed by the Montreal Protocol. Very correct. And the Kigali Amendment is the latest amendment in the Montreal Protocol. Montreal Protocol has gone through multiple different amendments. You had the London Amendment, the Copenhagen Amendment. You also had the Montreal Amendment and the Beijing Amendment amongst the major ones, to be followed by the Kigali Amendment in 2016, which put forward a timed target and a differentiated target for HFC emissions. With reference to the IUCN and sites, which of the following statements are correct? IUCN is an organ of United Nations and CITES is an international agreement between the governments. IUCN runs thousands of field projects around the world to better manage natural environments. CITES is legally binding on the states that have joined it, but this convention does not take place of the national laws. Now, IUCN, is it an organ of the UN? No, it is not. First statement in itself becomes incorrect. Eliminate that. IUCN runs thousands of field projects around the world to better manage natural environments and the species. Absolutely yes. CITES is legally binding on the states that have joined it, but this convention does not take place of the national laws. This is correct. CITES was basically signed in 1973, adopted in 1975. Now, when we talk about CITES, India has framed a law to follow the norms and regulations of CITES. What is the law that India has made to follow those norms and regulations? Let me know. So this is basically correct. So the answer is 2 and 3 only. Right? Now, if a wetland of international importance is brought under Montreal's record, what does it imply? Changes in ecological character have occurred, are occurring, or are likely to occur in the wetland as a result of human interference. Country in which the wetland is located should enact a law to prohibit any human activity within 5 kilometers from the edge of the wetland, and so on. What is Montreal's record? Montreal's record is basically a part of the entire Ramsar Convention itself, where those Ramsar sites which require urgent attention, urgent conservation and protection program, which are endangered and which can be destroyed, they are put under Montreal's record. So you basically have 2 of the wetlands in India which are under Montreal's record. They are Kyoladev and 2 of the Ramsar sites which are under Montreal's record. One is Kyoladev, other is Loktak. Earlier, Chilika Lake was also put under the Montreal's record due to heavy amount of siltation. But then, owing to the Chilika Development Authority's planned intervention, that was removed, and then now Chilika Lake has been removed from the Montreal's record. So in this, the correct answer is A. Right? However, those of you talking about the previous question about CITES, India had passed, or India already has, the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 to follow the directives or the basic aspects of CITES. And India has been amending it regularly in order to adhere to the larger principles of CITES. It is not as if CITES directs India that you have to amend Wildlife Protection Act, but CITES, as per its provisions, as per its norms, that keeps on changing, and accordingly the countries, they keep on amending their national laws as well. Okay, so it is the Wildlife Protection Act. That is the answer to the question. With reference to the Global Environment Facility, which of the following statements is or are correct? Now, this is an interesting question. It serves as the financial mechanism for CBD and United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Yes, Global Environment Facility, now it even helps in the Convention on Combating Desertification. World Bank is the trustee of GEF, and it provides funding for the Framework Convention on Climate Change as well as for CBD. So A is correct here. It undertakes scientific research on environmental issues at global level? No. Who does that? It is the work which is carried out by IPCC. Right? It is an agency under OECD to facilitate the transfer of technology and funds? No. D automatically becomes incorrect. So the correct answer in this case is going to be A. Right? This is carried out by IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, formed in 1988. Which are the organizations which led to the formation of IPCC? You had UNEP and World Meteorological Organization, which led to the formation of IPCC, which published its first assessment report in 1990 and 1991, which eventually led to the Rio Summit in 1992. Okay? World Bank is the trustee. That is for the funds. Okay? Now, after that, coming to the last question. Consider the following statements. Carbon markets are likely to be one of the most widespread tools in the fight against climate change. Carbon markets transfer resources from private sector to the state. Now, when we talk about carbon markets, so they are likely to be one of the most widespread tools. Yes or no? Absolutely yes. Eventually, they will bring about a kind of trading mechanism, market mechanism, and that market mechanism can reduce the overall emission across the globe. So yes, this is one of the most widespread tools in the fight against climate change. Now, carbon markets, they transfer resource from the private sector to the state. Can they do that? Yes, they can. They can transfer, for example, let's suppose one indulges in a kind of a carbon trade. Thereby, let's suppose you have the investment by the private sector into one of the countries to reduce the emissions. So emission reduction projects in another country. So that means the company, the organization is spending its resource into development of a capital asset, emission reduction asset in another country. So transfer resources from private sector to the state. Yes, it does. Resource here can be financial, technical, any kind of resource you are transferring. Now, both the statements are correct. But is this the one which is explaining the first statement? No, absolutely not. The statement which could have justified the first one was that it will lead to overall reduction in emission, it will lead to better implementation, meeting of the targets, etc. So both are correct, but two is not explaining the first. So here the correct answer is going to be B. That is, both are correct, but two does not explain one. Okay, with that, we come to the end of this marathon session, and I hope that at the end of it, you are able to capture the trends, you are able to understand what to approach, how to approach for the preparation of environment ecology. For environment ecology, we shall also be coming up with some of the more videos, and along with that, we shall also be coming up with the final phase of Conquer Prelims. So that should also help you in revising the current affairs which have happened. Now look at the previous Conquer Prelims as well, the previous phases, and also the aspect of Ramsar sites. That will help you substantially in improving your preparation for the prelims examination. I hope you would have liked the session. I hope this session has added some value to your existing knowledge set. If you have liked that, please do click on the like, share, and the subscribe button and put that in the comment section below. Till we meet again, take care of yourself, revise, goodbye, and have a good night.